Peace to the saints. I really hope you all appreciate me while I am here. Today's lecture will be critically important. It will move very quickly and cover a range of topics. We are in very curious times, but hey, we've always been in curious times, right? Number one, please don't stir that over here. Number one, I was asking myself, with Biden just having attacked Syria, what's the number one trending thing on Google today? Google's an American company. The primary consumer base is in America. What is the number one trending topic on Google when the United States of America has expanded the theater of war? Would you believe that the number one trending item on Google is Pokemon? Yes, Pokemon, number one trending search on Google, which lets you know how much of an imbecile your neighbor is. This is also the reason that Americans suffer so much. They're paying all these taxes, not knowing where the tax money is going, because while the government is engaging in nefarious activities, you guys are searching Pokemon, right? You're distracted. Not because the government did it to you, because you did it to yourself, because the human being is oriented on entertainment. But hey, that is what it is. Let us get to this critical topic today. I wanted to talk to you about this attack on Syria because it's quite deep, and not even I have all the time in the world to keep caught up with all of this stuff. But I figured I should mention it to you and kind of cover a little bit of the background so you can understand how this affects you as an American citizen, or shall I say as a potential target, right? As someone who may be potentially targeted. Let's think back. Generally, I want to set this stage first. People, and by the way, shout out to Gaius. He says, peace to the saints. Peace to the saints indeed. Appreciate the super chat. Let me set the stage for you guys. Number one, we come under the idea that there's significant difference between Republican and American. Republican and Democrat. That's a goofy assertion. Republican and Democrat have such trivial differences. This is not the difference between a communist and a capitalist. Those are big differences. Democrat and Republican are so similar that they're within the same American system. They're two parties who have endured side by side and been able to compromise fairly well because the differences between them are just inches. For example, historically, the Republican Party, they're supposed to be the conservative ones. They're supposed to believe in like the family. Well, now they even believe in LGBTQ gay marriage, right? So they're like mostly the same as the left in that regard. The differences are primarily economic, but even their foreign policy is very similar. It's mostly of aggressive war, attempting to maintain American hegemony, which is world domination. However, because America is currently a backward country in decline, they have no clear, linear geopolitical strategy. The real hegemon of our time is China, and will increasingly be China, because the Chinese, instead of bumbling along against each other, have a unified party with a very clear road. In fact, they call it the Belt and Road Initiative. Whereas what we're doing is engaging in protracted warfare. What do we mean by protracted? Endless, costly. And the funny thing about this strategy that the American government, not the American people, that the American government is engaging in, is very dangerous because it basically will bankrupt us. And you see, we're already in trillions of dollars of debt. Most of this debt comes from war, because if you do the numbers, the Iraq war was very expensive. Just to do test flights with our military weaponry is very expensive. And of course, not to count what it does to the environment with jet fuel and all these things like that, right? But let us consider this. The Democrat and Republican are both vicious warmongers. Let us not go all the way back in history and go through all of the death and destruction that has been caused by the American government. The American people are some of the greatest people in the world, but the American government is tremendously wicked. I will explain how and why. But let us not go back too far. Shout out to Jabri. Whoa, he came in super strong on the Cash App. Shout out. And he said, let's see what the saint says. He says, peace to the saints watching the live. Hey, it's about to get deep, Jabri. It's about to get deep. Let us just go back a little bit to George Bush. George Bush went ahead and invaded Iraq, right? Now, what you should understand about the Middle East, just like many places, is the people are very tribalized, meaning that they're separated into factions, be those factions on the basis of ethnicity, be those factions on the basis of religion, be those factions on the basis of topography, meaning, hey, we're separated by a river. We don't go on your side, you don't go on our side. What you must realize, number one, is that a lot of these lines, borders drawn by nation states are fictitious. And what I mean by fictitious is that they don't represent real cultures. Historically, the tribe represented a culture. In fact, the nation states used to be a lot smaller. They represented real cultures where people would share language, culture, folkways, mores, lineage, things like that. Consider this. America, because of the power of government, the ability of the government to project power throughout a large territory, it makes you feel as though you're all Americans, you're all one. But let us be real. How different is someone who lives in New Orleans, in Louisiana, from someone who lives in Manhattan, New York? They're very far apart geographically. They don't sound the same at all linguistically. They live in radically different ways. They're very different. They've been made to think that they're the same, made to think that they're Americans. New Yorkers have a fast way of life. In the South, you have a slow way of life. You've been made to think you're the same because this government has drawn a border around you so that they can extract taxes from you all at the same time. That's why they have you within this federal border and they take federal taxes from you. It's in the interest of the government to mesh you together. Now, there are some benefits to us being together, no doubt. But I just want to be real about number one, when you're told you're the same, it's not always adding up. Now, even more so, it doesn't add up in the Middle East and in certain places in Africa where people are very serious about their tribal differences and they even have linguistic differences, which really keeps a separation between peoples. And they have serious, deep religious differences, and they even have been warring tribes for centuries. And now you're trying to mesh them together. Now, here's the thing. When you have a location where there are disparate peoples, different types of groups that don't get along, you must have what's called a strong man. Some of you may call him a dictator, but it is an absolute necessity for one of the Western political philosophers says government is nothing more than the monopoly of force, the monopoly of violence, which is to say the government is strong enough to say, hey, we have the army, we have the police force, everyone in this territory better get along because if you want to go to war with each other and create civil unrest, we're going to go to war and kill all of you. We got all the guns. So you guys better sit down and calm down and live peacefully. Governments monopolize power. That's what they do. They have a monopoly of violence, and that's how they keep everyone calm. Now, when you have a dictator, the likes of Saddam Hussein or a Muammar Gaddafi, whom I wouldn't call a dictator, you have a Muammar Gaddafi, a Saddam Hussein, or any of the other personalities in the Middle East, they've held together peoples who are essentially at war with one another, and they were able to do it with minimal levels of violence. Saddam Hussein, for everything you can say about him negatively, which there are many things, Iraq was at greater peace under him than it has been under the American government. Muammar Gaddafi, for whatever you can say about him, which is not much, Libya was under greater stability and economic power under him than it is under its current leaderless government. And here's the worst thing. When you look at Libya, they had more gold reserves than the United Kingdom if we're talking about gold to people, right? You measure a country's wealth by per capita income. So Libya was a pretty wealthy place. They were even giving interest-free loans to sub-Saharan African countries. Libya was a fairly advanced economy on a global scale, not just Africa, not just the Middle East, because they were able to run pipelines and irrigate the desert so that they could be food self-sufficient. Not even Nigeria, which is a large country with a huge population, is food self-sufficient, when in actual fact, Nigeria used to be food self-sufficient until they started taking money from the likes of the IMF, the International World Banking Organizations. These United Nations type organizations sent them into poverty. had the Nigerians restructure their economy, and now they're not food self-sufficient. The Libyans were food self-sufficient. The Libyans had free education. I know that not only from studying it, but also when I was in university at Berkeley, I met Libyans who were there courtesy of the government doing PhDs in advanced mathematics. Very bright, polite men. And they were there gratis by the government. Further, did you know that in Libya, you didn't have to pay rent? They wanted you to own your home, average everyday people. The standard of living in Libya was exceptionally high. Until what? Until Barack Obama, the first African-American president, who's not even African-American because his ancestry is Kenyan, which is East African, whereas African-Americans are descendants of enslaved peoples from the transatlantic slave trade. Those are descendants of West Africans. So this guy who is not African-American, not African-American by race, ethnicity, or anything, he grew up in Hawaii. He grew up raised by elderly white folks. This guy went to war. I can't even call it a war because he basically bombed Libya when they weren't looking. He took an aggressive action, bombed their air force when they were on the ground. He created a no-fly zone. Now, it's just funny because if you look up the size of America by population, by wealth, and you look at the size of Libya, he was really bullying. And as far as I understand it, I don't think the international community condoned this. And it was ironic because this is after Muammar Gaddafi created positive relations with the West. But you might say, maybe this has something to do with the per barrel price on that sweet crude oil that Libya was producing. Might have something to do with that. Huh? Good Lord. Give me a second. I ain't done. There's a lot. Shout out to the haters. We drink that pre-workout out of a wine glass. You heard me? That's how I'm living. It's really like that. Let's get back on it. Shout out to Lucky Sport. I ain't seen you in a while, love. Let's get back on it. So then you remove Gaddafi. Here's what annoys me about calling Barack Obama the son of a Kenyan. And no disrespect to Kenya. I love Kenyans. You might even see me in Mombasa pretty soon. But you call the son of a Kenyan an African-American. African-Americans are the descendants of enslaved Africans. And ironically, this guy is the direct reason that Africans today are being enslaved in Libya. Why? Because as soon as Gaddafi was taken out of power, the vacuum that was created allowed for a lot of violence and disgusting things to occur in Libya. And one of those things is the enslavement of sub-Saharan Black Africans today as we speak. Further, America has said that they were using depleted uranium in Libya. And this is not conspiracy theory because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I went to great universities. I'm a capitalist. I engage in truth and science. Former Congresswoman Regina McKinney, I can't remember her name, look it up, but she was there on the ground and she said people's eyes were burning and all of the symptoms of depleted uranium usage was there in Libya. I wouldn't at all be surprised. Here's the funny thing about Libya, because Gaddafi did so much for the Libyan people, boy, they sure did fight it out. They fought the Americans tooth and nail once their military was destroyed. Huh? You don't do that for leaders who have done nothing for you. Further, let me clarify this. Some people say, oh, I know a Libyan. This Libyan family didn't like Gaddafi. Well, duh. You can find an American family that doesn't like Biden. You can find an American family that doesn't like Trump. You can find whole American groups that don't like Trump, right? Whether it's Antifa. You can find a whole American groups that don't like Biden, whether it's Black Lives Matter or the alt-right or whomever. No one is universally loved. But here's the thing. When you go in, you destroy Iraq, you destroy their economy, you destroy their future, you destroy their infrastructure, you remove their strong leader. Now they're in protracted civil warfare and unrest among warring factions, be them ethnic or Shia and Sunni. Huh? That's what you got in Iraq. Here's the crazy thing about taking Gaddafi out of Libya, and this should really blow your mind. We're always worried about terrorism, aren't we? Let me school you. This is going to blow your mind. Tell this to the next disgusting liberal imbecile that you talk to. When they say, oh, it was a good thing that we took Gaddafi out of power. He's a monster. First ask them, well, how's he a monster? Who did he kill? What monstrous activities did he engage in? Once they stumble and they're unable to answer that, then tell them, let me give you an example of what a monster actually is. And I'm a big fan of Ronald Reagan. But what Ronald Reagan did do is he bombed Gaddafi's home and murdered Gaddafi's adopted daughter, who was a toddler. That's a monster, because we were not at war with Libya and we had no reason to try to murder a leader of a foreign country. It's ironic that we have the United Nations, yet we go in and try to murder foreign leaders without the consent of the United Nations. The United Nations is a lapdog of America currently. Tomorrow, it'll be a lapdog of China. Now, that's what a monster is. So once you've removed Gaddafi, you've removed Saddam Hussein, you've taken out the powerful figures of stability in the Middle East, now you've created a hotbed of unrest. And here's the worst thing. You've heard of this organization called Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, yes, this is a terrorist organization. How did the world find that out? They only found that out because an individual named Muammar Gaddafi reported them to Interpol, the International Policing Organization, and said, hey, these guys are a bad bunch. These are radical Islamic terrorists. Al-Qaeda, they're trying to infiltrate my country. Help me out. If you know anything about Gaddafi, you would know that he is not a radical Muslim, not by any means. In fact, he brought women's rights to a lot of the women in Libya who did not previously have those rights. He had an all-female bodyguard. He allowed females to have education. The man was doing things that are revolutionary in the context of Islam in the Middle East and Arab culture. Yeah, but you ain't know that, did you? You dumb leftist bastard. Now, and I get on these rightists in a minute, right? Because the rightists, the Republicans, started the issue in Iraq. The thing I like about the rightists is at least at some level, you know what they're doing. They're just going for the money. The leftists, you don't know what the hell they're trying to do. The rightists are stealing shit. But the leftists, you're like, what are they doing? Now, here's the thing. I want you guys to trip on this. I'm going to get to these cash apps in a second. I want you guys to trip on this. So we go and we remove Saddam. Now Iraq is being run by warlords, the Shia, the Sunni, okay. And then you still have the loyalists to Saddam. Well, that's crazy. Then in Libya, you have the loyalists to Gaddafi. You have his children, which they tried to kill all of his children. By the way, if you saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi, no human being should have had to suffer the way that man suffered. These animals who were financed by the CIA, an arm of American aggression, they financed these rebels in Libya. How do we know that? Because no rebel group can defeat an organized military. Duh. We were providing aerial intelligence and surface-to-air missiles to these rebel groups. Now, let's be real here. Use your common sense. Of course, in a country like Libya, which has less educational attainment than America, I would assume, right? How do they know how to operate surface-to-air missiles? How do they know how to interpret aerial intelligence? How do they know how to strategize to defeat a well-organized military with a very strong intelligence apparatus? How do they know how to do that? They don't know how to do that, you fucking idiot. The only reason they're able to do that is because the CIA went in there and organized people. Further, they imported mercenaries, trained killers. There's no way any civilian population can defeat a modern military. It is impossible. Now, so we basically had the Americans overthrow the Libyans. Now Libya has actual enslavement of sub-Saharan Africans. There are open slave markets in Libya. That's interesting. They've destroyed the infrastructure so they can no longer farm in the desert. Okay, they've destroyed the hospital and the educational institutions, which is amazing because they used to have free healthcare and mortgages being subsidized by the state. And that's funny because this is all what Americans want. Americans want free healthcare. Americans want free education. The Libyans had it. Makes you wonder why we tried to destroy this nation. Sure does. Now, so you've created two failed states. If there's a man named Noam Chomsky who's a genius, he made his career in linguistics and moved over into politics because the political scientists weren't getting the job done. And he wrote a book about failed states. And failed states are governments and nations that have failed due to their own, bumbling, or due to the intervention, which is a euphemism for America coming in and blowing your shit up and crushing your government and killing your leader, which we do on a regular basis. We don't like when anybody else does it, but we do it. And here's our method. What we like to do is first disarm the country remotely, if we can, right? We like to put sanctions on them to destroy them economically, like we do to Venezuela, right? Like we do to Cuba. And then so we put those, or like we do to Iran, we put the sanctions on them, destroy them economically with the hope that their people will hate being poor and rise up. And when those people start to rise up, then America comes in and we arm them via the CIA. We give them weapons, aerial intelligence, surface-to-air missiles, tactical training. We've done this historically. We did this with the Mujahideen. We did this with this guy named Osama bin Laden. You've heard of it, Osama bin Laden. He's trained by the Americans. We do this all the time. So then we give them all of this arming. And then if the population still can't rise up against the leader because he's too strong or he's too loved, then we're like, damn it, we got to go in there. We hate doing it, but we do it every now and then. So then we'll go ahead and just bomb you, right? Or we'll arm some foreigners to go in there, like we did to the Cubans. When we had we armed we trained a group in foreign Latin American countries and as well in Miami. We tried to send them into Cuba. We still couldn't get what's the guy with the big beard? Fidel Castro. We couldn't get him out of there. Damn it. That was one of our failings. But we did get out the dude in Venezuela. We also tried to kill Fidel over 100 times. I'm not a communist, but I just think it's weird to try to murder people, right? That's just me. By the way, war itself is murder, and that's kind of what our tax dollars go to. And just side note real quick, if you ever listen to this dude named Osama bin Laden, who clearly you've been trained to hate, and I can understand why, but here's the funny thing. He said the reason that we get angry at Americans is because they're a democracy, which means they get to choose their leader and choose their politics, and their tax dollars fund the bombs that fall on our children. So that's why we're mad. I get that. Like if a motherfucker who's my neighbor was coming into my house and stealing shit and told me that another neighbor was paying him to do it, I'd be mad at both of them. That's just me. So here's the trippy thing. So you're like, Mark, what does this have to do with Syria? Well, we are so silly and our intelligence is either really bad, meaning our intelligence services, either the intelligence services are really bad or we don't have a proper geopolitical strategy, because the leader of Syria was a gentleman who used to wear Hugo Boss suits, speak perfect English, was fairly westernized, pretty liberal, not a radical Muslim, and his wife was pretty darn liberal, but he's the guy we want out of power. That's weird. Why would we take them out of power when in actual fact, him being in power creates stability in that region? Why would we even care about stability in that region anyways? It's not like we live there, right? We don't. We got a couple military bases there. Why? Because we have interest there, economic interest, not me and you, like average American people, more so the plutocrats, the super wealthy who run our government and care nothing about us. The reason we know they care nothing about us is because while America lives in disrepair, our roads are having potholes. I lived in San Francisco, one of the wealthiest zip codes in the country. I have to drive my car through potholes. You wouldn't believe they never gave me reimbursement for cracking the wheels on my BMW. It's a shame. So I got to drive through potholes while in Costa Rica, they got nice roads. I got to drive through potholes while they're spending trillions of dollars in foreign wars that benefit no one. And what's worse, these foreign wars create something called a terrorist. A terrorist, someone who their parents or their children were murdered by American taxpayer-funded missiles, by American-funded, taxpayer-funded drones, killed one of their family members, and now they have a blood feud. If you're Arab, you know the Arabs are pretty serious people. Blood feuds are real to them. Blood feuds are real to everybody. You kill someone's family, they kind of want to be at your neck. So a terrorist is not a bad person. A terrorist is this. This is what a terrorist is. It's a person who does not have the means, the military means to fight you on an even playing field. So they resort to by any means necessary. Let's be real here. If Iraqis or Palestinians could get tanks and aircraft and, choppers and aircraft carriers, they'd fight us with that. But if they just got a rock or if they got to commandeer a plane, they're going to do it. Why? Because we're financing the murder of their relatives. And here's the thing. It should make perfect sense to you. I live in America. I'd be damned if a Russian country has a base in my country. I don't want Russia having a base here. I don't want Korea having a base in my country. I don't want Israel having a base in my country. I don't want Saudi Arabia having a base in my country because it's my country. It's my country. As a patriot, as a nationalist, as a citizen, you don't want someone else's foreign power in your soil. That's why the Saudis don't like us. That's why the Middle Easterners, the Iraqis, don't like us, because we have invaded their land and we're occupying their land militarily. Even in Cuba, we have a base there, and that's not our land. We have more bases around the world than anyone. That's why we're hated, because we spread violence. We don't send out engineers. We don't send out people to build infrastructure and give education. We send out violence. We have bases everywhere. We don't have universities everywhere. Our government doesn't put universities around the world. We put aircraft carriers outside of your country to intimidate you. And all of this is done on the American tax dollar. That's what fucks me up. That's why I hate paying taxes. I don't want to finance murder. Yes, blood is on your hands. You should be in rebellion against this government, which is murderous. Because here's the thing. You don't think all of the filth you're sending out in the world will not come back to you? You think 9/11 was a rarity? No, it will keep occurring. Let me explain why. I heard something idiotic. One of Biden's collaborators today said that, yeah, we attacked these Iran-backed forces in this fill-in-the-blank country just to let them know that they can't do fill-in-the-blank. Are you stupid? Are you stupid? You're dealing with people who are fanatical for three major reasons. Fanatical because, number one, you don't understand radical Islam. You don't understand radical Islam because you're a bourgeois Christian, big air quotes, meaning you don't really believe. Islam is an entire complete way of life that people were raised on since they were a child. So if Islam tells you to come to support of your Muslim brothers who are being attacked, that's how you have transnational organizations like ISIS, these organizations where they come together on the basis of religion and they're radicalized. And in Islam, unlike Christianity, there are surahs, meaning verses, that say, hey, eye for an eye. Conversely, in Christianity, it says, if you get slapped in one cheek, turn the other cheek to get slapped again. So Islam, you're dealing with a situation, especially when it's radicalized, where an imam or a sheikh can give a fatwa. They can give damn near a death sentence, or they can interpret a surah in a way that will turn people against you, in a way that makes them think they will die as a martyr and God will bring them to heaven for what they're going to do to you. You cannot fight against people like that. Further, you can't fight against true nationalists, meaning people who believe in soil. They believe you shouldn't be on their soil. This is why when we went to war against Vietnam, we couldn't win. We couldn't win because those Vietnamese people under Ho Chi Minh were willing to crawl through those small tunnels. And when Americans had to go in those tunnels after them, they were fucking scared. Why? Because their heads were not fighting for land and blood. They're mercenaries. Our soldiers are mercenaries. They're getting paid. You're fighting against people who are volunteering. These terrorists are fighting. They're volunteering. They're not doing it for money. Neither were the Vietnamese doing it for money. You will never be able to fight against people like that when you're using a mercenary army. This is basic knowledge. Master Sun Tzu pointed this out. Many military geniuses have pointed this out. A mercenary army never fights as hard as an army raised from the sons of that soil. That's number two. Let me just take a break here. Let me take a break. Cheers to everyone. I mean, it's disgusting stuff, really. By the way, if you haven't followed my second channel, you might want to follow it because this is the kind of stuff that get people blackballed. Now, onto the Syria thing. Here's the thing that you need to share with Americans. You'll hear foolish Americans say things like, well, Marquette, mustn't we take these dictators out of power? The guy in Syria, the guy in Libya, the guy in Iraq. We have to take them out of power because they're, quote, killing their own people. Gee, that's funny you say that. Are we not killing our own people when we kill Mike Brown or Trayvon Martin or who are some of the other dead black guys? I lose track of them now. Do you know?
There's so many of them.
There's so many. I don't even fucking know. Are we not killing our own people when the police are killing all these random black guys? That don't count? No, it only counts when other people do it. It only counts when they do it. And here's the thing about killing your own people. No one kills their own people. If you consider someone your own people, you don't kill them. So if I'm the leader of Iraq and I'm killing the Kurds, Clearly, I didn't consider them my own people. Maybe I considered the Sunnis my own people. Or if I'm a cleric who's a Shia and I'm killing some other people who may be Sunnis, I didn't consider them my own people, though we're within this same nation state, because as I said, the nation state border does not make people identify as one. And you should know that, being an American, because how often do we find conflict between the black and the white? How often do we find conflict between the black and the brown? I mean, let us be real here. When there is a lack of education and true understanding, people will not come together on the basis of values or on the basis of civility. No one, by definition, kills their own people. We only kill the others. That's why you guys are comfortable paying taxes to a government who regularly finances murder in the Middle East. And here's another thing. Let's talk about this Iran issue. The American government is trying to sanction Iran, and what they're trying to do right now, and by the way, I'm not Shia and I'm not a supporter of Iran, and I don't have any particular interest in supporting Iran. I don't have any good friends or who are Iranian or speak Farsi. I'm just pointing out the facts. I'm an objective party. Now, this is why we don't like Iran. It's the same reason we don't like North Korea. It's because they can defend themselves, and we're bullies, so we hate that. This is how we know. With Gaddafi, we made him give up all of his weapons, and then we said, now you've given up your weapons, we can be friends. Then we're like, tricked you, and then invaded. The only reason we're able to invade after that, by invade, drones, airstrikes, local militia, rebels, we call them. Now, if that happened in America, we wouldn't call them rebels. We'd call them terrorists, right? If that happened in America, we would say they were rioting, not creating revolution. This is what we were saying about the black people in Ferguson. We're saying they were rioting, they weren't revolutionaries. They weren't rebels. They were rioters. And so when this occurs abroad and we like it, we say that these undissatisfied groups, we call them revolutionaries or rebels, and we support them. By support them, we pretty much do everything and pretend as though they are not us, when it's really actually our troops, our CIA operatives on the ground and paid mercenaries. So anyways, this is what we're trying to do right now to Iran. And Iran, we're putting sanctions to make them poor, try to make the people rise up. But Iran has managed poor people and dissatisfied people for a long time. So they're really good at it. They keep good control. They have a good intelligence apparatus. We even send in intelligence agents, and we're very bad at getting intelligence agents in there because we don't have enough people who speak Farsi and have the advanced degrees required to go in there for good reason. Mathematics, physics, engineering, people who can be an asset in Iran and find a back door in there as a business person or something like that, something innocuous. So we don't have a way to get someone high up in government in Iran. So we're like, okay, we can't infiltrate them on the intelligence side. We're making them poor, but it's not really hurting them. Clearly, they must have some backers we don't know about. And then here's the issue. We're putting the sanctions so we can remove their nuclear capacity. Why do we want to remove their nuclear capacity? Because once we know they don't have real weapons, that's a bully's dream. Then we can go in and take over. Once we know they don't have real weapons, we can go in without any risk to ourselves. And here's the even funnier thing. You might say, well, Marco, why do Americans care about Iran so much? We kind of do and we kind of don't. Israel and the Israeli lobby in America is very powerful. And most of the white people I know personally who are real friends of mine are Jewish. Very accomplished people. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're Israeli or that they're from Israel or support Israel, but the Israeli lobby is very strong in America. And the Israeli state is on an island surrounded by enemies, right? Saudi Arabia, all these Arab states that basically wish they didn't exist. And Iran is one of the stronger ones. And, under the Shah of Iran, way back, they had the 5th largest military in the world. So historically, Iran has had a very strong military. And for that reason, Israel must weaken these states. They might do a water deal with Egypt. They might create some kind of treaty with Egypt under the guy who came after Nasser. I think it was Anwar Sadat. So they create relations with Egypt because Egypt went to war with Israel. They weaken the other countries through proxy wars using America as their pond. So they'll go and destroy Iraq, and they'll have Syria getting destroyed as well. And this strengthens their position. Now, let's say if we talk about military might, intelligence apparatus, and strategy, Israel, these dudes are gangsta. You heard me? And so they want Iran weakened because if Iran was to use nuclear force, I don't know if they can reach America. but they for damn sure can reach Israel, right? And they have gone on the record saying, quote, death to Israel. They've also said death to America, right? So they are at some level a real enemy. And because of that, the Israeli lobby pushes America to engage Iran in war, whether it's proxy war, direct war, or cyber attacks, what have you. And here's the worst part about it. We're fighting on behalf of another nation while we're also sending aid to that other nation, but we're not getting a lot back. You see, we're just getting enemies because Saudi Arabia, they play nice with us, but Saudi Arabia really don't like America like that. They don't, because they know we're in bed with Israel. And where did Osama bin Laden come from? Saudi Arabia, huh? Osama definitely don't like America, right? We know that. So you have all of these different pieces on the geopolitical chessboard, and America is being used like a cheap whore. The only people who are not using America are Americans. The only people who are not getting a benefit out of the American military and the American government are Americans. And let me tell you how sick and sad it is when these veterans join the military. There's some white guys who are real patriots, and shout out to them, you heard me? But I feel sad when they sign up to protect their land, called America, and we send them out to foreign lands to lose limb and life. They come back incomplete, missing body parts, mentally traumatized because of unnecessary wars. And then it makes American citizens, the families of these soldiers, feel angry. Those evil Arabs, those evil Iraqis. Are they really evil when we sent our people to step on their land? When's the last time America was attacked by anybody? Call in. Somebody call in. I don't know. We don't get attacked by anybody. We just walk down the street punching everybody in the mouth for no fucking reason. It's crazy. Yeah. Now, let me check on a few of these Cash Apps, and then we'll answer some questions. By the way, shout out to the people who are online right now, because you guys are exceptional. As I said at the start of this, most people are searching Pokemon because that's what's trending on Google search in America. Pokemon. That's the nation that we live in. Shout out to Hinan Cooper for sending through the Cash App. Shout out to Preston. He writes, this information needs to be shared worldwide. Absolutely. And P, the funny thing is there are a lot of Arabs who are at home in their countries watching this. They're like, he's saying the same thing my uncle said. Arabs at home right now, like they're telling people like, this guy's saying everything we say every day. Yeah, because in other countries, discussing politics is a necessity because their life depends on it. The reason people are so concerned with who America elects, because their life depends on it. The irony is that whether it's Trump or Biden or Bush or Clinton, it's pretty much all the same because the American government has been a warmongering government. Although I will say, shout out to Trump, I don't think he started any new wars. Obama came in on a platform of, I'm going to end the Iraq war, and he extended it. And Biden is clearly doing the same thing. Shout out to Edward. He sent through the Cash App. Shout out to Ronald. Came through with the Cash App as well. Truly appreciate it. Now we're going to hit some of these super chats, and then we're going to start, winding down on the implications of this to you as an American. And by the way, if you haven't followed my second channel, do follow it, because this channel probably going to get sanctioned by the Google Corporation. That's what they do. They've already banned me on a two-week ban. I think we got another Cash App coming through. And as always, I say show love to those who show love to you, because in this era where we see nationality break down at the level it's breaking down, we see values break down. You know that we live by no values when Americans can feel comfortable by, like, we got the news, Biden went and struck in Syria. We can't even explain why. Like, we don't even ask why they did that. We don't understand it. We can't explain it, but we never ask to vote on that. In a democratic society, we never vote on the things that count. Like, should we be continuing this war? We never vote on that. Shout out to Ride the Prophet, sends through the Cash App. And I'm really shocked right now. I got a lot of love for the Saints who have pulled up, because I didn't expect this topic to have anyone watch it. I did this topic because it hurts me to see the kind of conduct that my country is engaging in. And it hurts me to know that I'm in part responsible for murder if I don't speak up and stand up. So I'm just so honored that you guys are joining with me from wherever you are in the world. This is a really special moment. Shout out to Dylan Alexander, comes through with the super chat. He writes, grew up a military brat. You're speaking facts. And, shout out to the people in the armed services. This is not disrespect to them, because my heart goes out to any man or woman who would want to defend their country. But are you defending your country when you're sent out to Iraq? Can you explain how that defends America when Iraq never attacked America? When you're sent out to Syria, is that our government and our country loving and cherishing their troops? Or is that us sending you out to create, to do the dirty work of other nations? Is that us sending you out to do the dirty work of rich plutocrats when we go and destroy Iraq, and then we pay American companies to rebuild the infrastructure in Iraq? We say, oh, we got to rebuild these oil pipelines. We got to rebuild the schools. We're going to give this contract to Caterpillar to supply all of the what does Caterpillar make? What are those called? Tractors, to make all the tractors. And we're going to give the contract to this company to make all the cranes and do all the reconstruction. And then in 20 years, we'll break it all again and then pay these American companies to rebuild it. And guess who owns these American companies? Whether it's Blackwater, these private security companies, all of these companies are owned by the people in government. I mean, it's very laughable. And I think it's strange when you have people who think that they're pure. People are like, oh, Barack Obama has a good heart. No, he doesn't. No one with a good heart goes into government. I went into government. The moment I looked around, I got out of there, because I never seen such incompetence and such black-hearted, self-interested people. It's all the nerds from school who want to feel powerful because they never felt powerful in their lives. Yeah, no, government is not the place for people who want to help. People who want to help, you know what they do? They help. You might call these people Mother Teresa. People like that, they just go out and help. They get started. They reach out to what's within their locus of control. Let me shout out some of these super chats. I'm just scrolling through here. Shout out to Aaron, sends through the super chat, came in strong. Truly appreciate that. And we're just going to go in order here. Michael sends through the super chat. He writes, Epstein and Maxwell are Mossad agents who got dirt on American politicians because of their sexual deviance. Israel gets what they want from the US. Michael, you know what? I think you're right about Epstein, and we all know that Epstein committed suicide, air quotes, a billionaire who apparently didn't have enough money to wage a legal defense, right? He commits suicide. He used to be the friend of President Clinton, Foreign Secretary Hillary Clinton, and also former President Bill Clinton, friends of all these powerful politicians. And he had his private island where they would do all kinds of things, not only American politicians, but also the Prince of the UK. And he ends up committing suicide. I think that's curious. I think that's very curious. And people might say, oh, is that a conspiracy theory? Is it conspiratorial to think that powerful people kill their enemies? Is that not what the American government is doing on a regular basis? Is war not murder? They're comfortable with war. Murdering millions. Is murdering an individual a challenge to these people? I don't think so. So I think Michael is right in that. He also says that Israel gets what they want from the U.S. This is very true often. And there's a former CIA director. I want to say his name was Michael something. I can't remember his last name. But he was very high up in the CIA. And he said that a lot of the actions that America takes, basically at the request of Israel, disadvantages us, right? It's not in our own personal interest as Americans, and it creates terrorism because governments and peoples in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Palestine, Iran, they see America as basically the protector of Israel because we're providing them military intelligence, we're providing them spare parts, we're also giving them huge amounts of aid, even though they already balance their economy and they have a strong economy. And if I was an Israeli, I would say, good, keep it up, because every individual and nation must operate in their self-interest. So as an Israeli, I would say, yes, we got a good deal here, carry on. However, as an American, this does not help us. You see, when the terrorist attacks of 9/11 occurred, it occurred in America because the terrorist was wise enough to know that America is the real bank account of Israel. America is the military of Israel. The alliance is very strong, but it's ironic if you study history, the Jewish people and the Israeli people are very intelligent, and I admire them tremendously. And I say they're a good example to learn from because back in the day in America, there was this term WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. These were the people who ran America back in the day. And it was such that being a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant which is not a Jew, not a white Jew, it's almost the opposite in their eyes. They used to be very anti-Semitic, such that Henry Ford, the inventor of the Ford motor car and the inventor of the assembly line, which allows you to be able to afford cars, right? This genius in American history wrote a book called The International Jew, which was basically an anti-Semitic work saying that the Jews are infiltrating America and taking control, and that these are wicked people. They should be done away with and blocked from America. That's how anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic America was among the white upper class, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Now, you go from a magnate, you go from a boss, a very powerful, wealthy American, writing a public book shunning the entirety of these people, to now these folks are in American government, highly influential, have a powerful lobby, the most powerful lobby. That's a big turnaround, which should let you know that anything can be done and can be achieved. So learn from the Jewish people. They are very intelligent, shrewd people. And the ones that I know personally, I find them to be good people. And man, some of them Israeli girls are hella fine, boy. You ain't, I'm telling you. ZayTG writes, waiting to see if you blow up and take over the world. Here's some back intuition. Keep going strong, G. Hey, I truly appreciate that, Saint. And this can only work if we are doing this in a united way. At the end of the day, our work will only expand if it's a global effort. Because what I'm talking about today, for example, this topic, there are people in Egypt. There are people in Palestine. There are people all over the world who say, my uncle, my father, my mother says this all the time. And they know because they live in these places. They live among the rubble. They live among the ashes that were created by American bombs. They live in these places and they look at the TV and they say, I thought Obama was for the people, but then he bombed and murdered innocent people in Libya. Because they weren't hitting military targets, because we were not at war with Libya. When we were bombing Tripoli. Understand this. Tripoli is like their version of New York. That's where all their population is gathered, in that city, because Libya is desert, right? So when we were bombing Libya, we were bombing civilian targets. So for our movement to work, which is a global movement, wherein all peoples can identify by values, irrespective of the surface differences of skin color, of religion, then we can progress. Because when we separate out one another and say that we are so different because you pray facing this way or you read this holy text, that's when it makes it easy for us to look the other way when a human tragedy is occurring. There is tragedy in Syria today, yesterday, and for the last decade, there's been tragedy in Iraq. Yet we live in our bourgeois societies and forget about it and spend our time Googling Pokemon, playing video games, watching the Kardashians. It's vile. We are heartless people. And until that changes, this movement can't grow. But I think there's a strong movement. And we have nearly 1,000 people right now talking about the facts, talking about how we can start to change this. Now, awareness is one thing, but what we must do is we must also get into government with the mentality that we have and take over the machinery of government. Because until then, we cannot see progress. Felix writes, tell him, sir. Yes, sir. Andre sends through the super chat, truly appreciate it. Swiffer Wetjet writes, in the world of conformity, the biggest power / bully always uses the mob tactic. You either get down or lay down, because we are a mob. You're completely correct. And as I said earlier, the definition of government is to monopolize force or power. And through the monopoly of force, be it policing force or army, military, etc., they're able to make you and I submit. The only way that we can actually rise up is through unity, which is why you should think twice about how they're leveraging COVID-19 to break down new social connections. Because when people have on a mask, you can't even recognize people you do know. And you surely are not introducing yourself to new people when you're staying 6 feet apart. So they're breaking up the commons, right? You're not going out in public and meeting people and interacting. We're in an increasingly lonely society. And because of that, the government wins because they're already organized, whereas they keep us separated as individual atoms. Shout out to the Lady Saint sharing tuition. Truly appreciate that, Capri. Aristides comes through. He writes, When I was in the military, I couldn't stand those white dudes thinking they are doing a difference in the world. You know what? I think it's really sad that the military has brainwashed so many people into thinking that they're, quote, protecting our freedom. One of the biggest lies America has told anyone. Does it make sense that you have to go to another country and kill, commit murder there to protect your freedom here? When they told you that the Muslims hate you as Americans, they said they hate you because of your freedom. But you notice no one has ever played a clip of Osama bin Laden speaking at length on American television. It's never happened. Why? Because he's saying things that are so simple, things you might agree with. He's saying Saudi Arabia is a holy land to the Muslims, just like Jerusalem is a holy land to the Jews and the Christians. He says, this is our nation. We don't believe that the Americans should have military troops here. And he said the following thing, which was very simple. He said, if I made an appeal, I would not make an appeal to the American government, for they are wicked and their heart knows no words. Rather, I would make an appeal to the mothers of America, for I know the American people are good people. I would tell the mothers of America to call your sons home. Call your sons home from being on this land where they are unwelcomed, for this is a holy land, the land of my fathers, and we do not want them here. And as long as they are here, we are going to do what we can to get them the fuck out of here. Now, that's reasonable. America has never had foreign soldiers on our land, and I don't want foreign soldiers on our land. I wouldn't care if America started bodying black men left and right. Well, I think they already started doing that, right? Police been doing it. Okay. I wouldn't care if they started bodying black men left and right. The Russian army didn't say, we're going to go save the black men of America. China didn't say, we're going to go save the black men of America. No, we'd never let that happen. No nation should have foreigners on their foreign military on their soil. And it's a shame that average people, which are the type of people who generally join the military, right? Because if you're in a strong economic position, because you've gotten good public education, because you were in the land of opportunity and the government supported your rise in the society, you wouldn't have to go into the military. What is the military's goal? Murder, generally. Right? Like you're being a trained killer. There's no disrespect to anybody. I'm a warlike man myself, but you're becoming a trained killer. If we really want to protect freedom, shouldn't you become a teacher? Isn't that where we should be pushing people and financing that? The government finances killers in a heartbeat, but they don't finance teachers at the same level, do they? Right? They don't do recruitment for teachers. You can find military offices like the Army, the Navy, where they recruit. How hard are they recruiting for teachers? If you really want to protect freedom, you must protect the mind. This is the key to freedom, is the mind. Most Americans think they're free because they have a long rope. The rope around their neck is very long, but they've never tried to walk around the block. So they've never felt the limitations of that rope. Check on this. If you want to fly outside of America, you can't take more than $10,000 in cash. Why is that? It's your money. It's your money. Why can't you take it out of America? Think about that. If you're an American, you have to have a booklet from the government even to leave America. Why is that? You also have to pay for that booklet, that passport. How free are you really? You never realize you're free until you try to exercise freedom. Vincent says The Saint is the channel name. That's right. If you go to my main channel, you can find my backup channel. I absolutely advise you to join it because this channel has been under tremendous attack. I hope that you are a sincere supporter of the work that I do. And next time your favorite YouTuber says my name out of their mouth, tell them, quiet down, you're a YouTuber. The Saint is a leader. You guys may have seen the other videos on my channel. We actually have people get together in person, share knowledge, train, evolve. You see, I am a capitalist. I want you all to be good capitalists. I want you to be in the power position. I also want you to be upright people who bring life to the world, who breathe positivity into the world. That is what we promote here. You dig? And go ahead and acknowledge a few more of these super chats. Show love to those who are showing love to me. Lucas writes, spitting way too many facts. This is getting taken down by Google ASAP. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you guys. Get on that second channel. You want to stay connected. Romer sends a super chat. He says, Biden destroys while Trump made peace deals. It's a shame to see what's currently occurring and how Americans in their media fool their own citizens. It's quite interesting. I remember when Trump was having a meeting with the leader of North Korea, And people were complaining. I thought, if the leader of North Korea is our enemy, and Trump theoretically is trying to make friendship, make peace, normalize relations, shouldn't we celebrate this? Why do we want our enemies to remain enemies? This is a very strange position. So certainly there is some perversion and wickedness within the American government. And what's worse is that whereas you have people who identify under the grouping of Democrat and Republican, and because they're part of these street gangs, whatever the other gang does, they say is a bad thing. No matter how good the thing is, they say it's a bad thing, as though we're not all Americans, as though we should not have a system of collaborating to build. We'd rather destroy to build. I don't identify under the Democrat or Republican label, because both of these camps have broken philosophies and both of them are filled with warmongers. That's why we're building the Assassin, which is a haven, a global haven for the creative, the intellectual, those who live uprightly and want to help people around the world do so. Thank you for your super chat. Paulo writes, a well-armed society can keep a tyrannical government at bay. People are free when they know they can defend themselves. This is true. And certainly the American framers of our society provided for this. And there are a lot of states within the United States, be them Texas or in the Northeast, where they still protect the right to bear arms. One thing we forget is the mind is the first weapon, even before the barrel of the gun. And when the mind is in chains, if you are the holder of the gun, you don't know when to use the gun. You don't know whom to use the gun on. And so our big piece of work here is to spread this ism so that we have a true lens through which we can actually understand the world. Think about how blind the average citizen is when they're convinced that a poor person in Palestine is our enemy. You can't throw a rock that far, right? A Palestinian kid can't throw a rock from Palestine and have that shit land in Manhattan, right? Those are not our enemies. So it's very sad when the mind is so shackled. That first weapon is what must be honed, but undoubtedly, strap up. Yes, indeed. It may come to that. I hope that it doesn't. And, I'm convinced that if we can leverage the tools of modern society, such as this one, to spread good information, we will win. But we have to keep messages like this alive, and we got to keep me alive, because at the end of the day, if you look at what the government has done to leaders, it's vile. You look at I saw today trending Billie Holiday. The government used what was then called, the Federal Narcotics Bureau to basically silenced Billie Holiday because she made revolutionary songs like Strange Fruit, which was about the lynchings, the murder and the hangings of Black men, where they would castrate the man and then hang him and then have a picnic below the body, full families. Further, you see leaders who have all these vices, and those vices are used by their enemies to destroy them. Huey P. Newton of the Black Panther Party, I think he largely died as a drug addict. This is why I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't engage in sexual indecency. If you ever see those things pinned on me, that's a setup, right? Because people who have known me my whole life, they will never say, I've seen Marquette drink, never smoke, don't drink soda, don't drink sugar. You should live the same way. It is a pure way. We wrote a 3-sentence Quran, a 3-sentence Bible. Sentence number 1, be yourself. Sentence number 2, be good to yourself. Sentence number 3, be good to good people. You do that, you will bring goodness to the world, and you will enjoy goodness and happiness. Carrying on to acknowledge these super chats. Tanner sends through the super chat, just paying tuition. Truly appreciate that. Carlos writes, it's sad to think many people still trust the government. You are not lying. The government is tremendously wicked. Oh, boy. In fact, I'm perplexed that people trust the government. For example, the government on public record has acknowledged that they tried to murder Fidel Castro over 100 times. Now, they failed at it, which shows their level of incompetence. This is why I don't believe in nationalizing things. This is why I don't believe in communism, because the government worldwide is generally inefficient and ineffective. But they tried to kill a foreign leader over 100 times, and it's documented. The government even has publicly acknowledged that they tried to set up Martin Luther King to destroy his public reputation, to destroy his works. That was the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover, a known racist. He writes, quote, those guys only think about themselves. You got to read in between the lines. Carlos is right. People who go into government are not going into public service. People who go into government are going into self-service. Somebody send that to me. Bridget, can you write that down and send that to me? People who go into government are not going into public service. People who go into government are going into self-service. Shout out to the teachers. Shout out to the firemen. Shout out to those people who are real public servants. Carrying on. That Matteo guy writes, can you speak on why the UN will eventually back China? Yes, of course. The United Nations, as I said, is the lapdog of the United States. We know this because generally speaking, whether it's the Security Council or any other body connected with these international regulating forces, International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Bank, all of these international bodies, when America does something that is shunned globally, like invade Iraq, for example, we never get punished. When is the last time the United Nations sanctioned America? They don't. And a part of that is because we pay the most money to fund the United Nations. And the member states of the United Nations can be bullied by America. How is that? We remove the aid. We send out aid, which is welfare, to many of these countries. And if they vote against us, or if they do something we don't like, we can just pull the aid, or we can invade them, or we can destabilize the country, or we can replace the leader. All sorts of things. When you're this powerful, most countries can't do anything against you. Here's the thing. China's power is rising rapidly. And when they occupy the hegemonic power in the world, they will be the chief funder of the United Nations. They will start to pour out more and more aid to these foreign countries. But China's way smarter than America. Let me tell you what they do. Can you find one country that does not have a Chinatown, meaning a significant population of the Chinese merchant class, which is there doing business? And when you have the wealthy class in any society, surely they have influence in government. Surely they have power. So the Chinese can control your country from the outside and from the inside. America has not done that. You don't find significant populations of American expats controlling business in any region. You do find this with the Chinese. And even historically in Thailand, for example, like the Thai royal families have even stated, the Chinese are exercising undue influence in Thailand. I believe Pibum Songkrum, which was one of the prime ministers in Thailand, actually spoke about this. He was a nationalist, obviously. So that's how China will do it. Ian Connor writes, I was messing with your channel, but I'm done. No one cares about these topics. I'm done. Talk about game and women, or I'm going to be done with you. Deuces. Here's the thing, Ian. You, sir, are immature. Look at your name. Your name has vulgarity in it. You say talk about women and game. If your life revolves around vagina, you live a very small, limited life. This is not for you. This is not your way. You are not of the saints. You are probably of the other variety. You see, you live a low existence when you spend your time consumed with sex. What you don't realize is that what I've done is genius, which is to say we bring you in the door with candy for thought, women, game. We keep you in the door with food for thought, the vegetables and meats you need to sustain you. You are an immature boy. You will probably never, ever, ever truly understand the ism, and that's okay. It happens, but I appreciate you sending a parting gift. All of my love.
He sent money to hate?
I'm not going to say he hated. He just shared his opinion. I can respect that. He's an honest young man. So shout out to Ian. This way is not for everyone. As I always say, this is the leadership class. And I don't know why he thinks that him being done with me hurts me at all. It doesn't. You sent $4.99. I'm pretty confident I can just scroll down just a little bit and here's someone who sent more than you did. Over Dramatic writes, always glad to hear your intellectual dominance. What's the lobby name, by the way? Let me see. Let me check on that for you, Saint. It's always good to get the facts out. So let's see. Just want to get the exact name for you. Oh, yes, APAC. It's called APAC. And according to Wikipedia, it reads, the Israel lobby, at times called the Zionist lobby, are individuals and groups seeking to influence the United States government to better serve Israel's interests, end quote. So, and mind you, I'm not anti-Israel at all. I think Israel is doing what Israel should do, which is to promote its own interests. But AIPAC is kind of that collective that's forwarding their interests. Blackmon writes, facts. Romer writes, could you recommend some books to study these topics on such a range of truth? Romer, I recommend a book by Noam Chomsky. It's entitled Failed States. It's a great place to start if you want to build up that knowledge. Danica writes, just stopping in to show support. I truly appreciate it with your fine ass. I had the pleasure to do an interview with Danica some time ago. Very intelligent, well-balanced woman, a great example. And I appreciate her dropping in on this particular topic. I wouldn't have expected. A shout out to you and your husband. Stephen sends through the CAD, truly appreciate that, Saint. It's beautiful to see other content creators come and show love. I saw Yassine. I saw him at the top. I'm scrolling through, so I'll probably see a super chat soon, but I saw hello Yassine come through as well. Truly appreciate you, Saint. Kiwan writes, peace, love, and prosperity to the saints. Just want to know your thoughts on how you would prepare for an end of times scenario. Kiwan, you know what? I don't think the end of times is going to occur. Many of the ancient texts and good books have predicted end of times. I don't think I'll be around for the end of times, so I need to prepare. I think that'll come, in long after my lifetime. Tyworth says, speak. Just scrolling down. Lucas Longhurst writes, spitting way too many facts. Okay, I already got that one. Robert H. writes, peace to the saint. We need these types of messages. Truly appreciate that. Ahmed writes, Biden overstepping threatens Nigeria with sanctions and travel ban for not publicizing homosexuality. Wow. I am not shocked. And for those of you who love Barack Obama, he was also a pervert who was trying to force LGBTQ in Africa. And there is quite an entertaining video of an African head of state talking to a CNN biased reporter explaining, hey, we have bigger fish to fry here. We have waterborne disease. We have a disease ecology that is very difficult to deal with. Once we are able to make sure that our citizens all have access to clean water out of the tap, then we can talk about men sodomizing each other. But for now, that's a low priority. Matthew writes, great topic. Broadening the saint's view with world events and personal impact are important for becoming a well-rounded individual. Wish all of you well. Peace to the saints. I truly appreciate that because, so many people, like the gentleman whose super chat I read earlier, they're narrow-minded. They don't understand what I'm bringing to the world. Yes, we can talk about women. If it was up to me, I wouldn't talk about women at all, but it is a necessary part of being a man that you should be able to enjoy women. And it is also a necessary part of even bringing the views to this channel so we can discuss real things. Let us be dynamic. Let us be whole. You can discuss women. We can also discuss politics. What we're doing here is a very different thing than is being done anywhere. Your favorite YouTuber can only talk about one thing because largely that's all they know. For those of you who are disappointed because I'm not reviewing the same topics all the time, I can only tell you how to get laid so many damn times. I mean, come on. And if you really want that game, subscribe to patreon.com/the Saint in the Center. That's where we're really giving out that game. You dig? That's where you're going to learn it. Carrying on. Let me hit these super chats. It says the Wi-Fi is getting choppy. Let's go ahead and hit these super chats. And bear with me if your super chat has not been addressed. It is coming up. Lucas writes, and he's back again. I think he's tripled up. He writes, if the geopolitical trends continue, how do you think the Chinese threat will manifest in North America and the EU for our day-to-day lives? Well, Lucas, the Chinese threat has already manifested itself. Are you kidding me? But it's so invisible. Let me see. I can't find where that was made. Let me just, you got any products you can hand me? You got any products?
Not this
Pretty
one.
much every product I could pick up is made in China. The Chinese threat is already here. Are you kidding me? The Chinese threat is economic dominance. The sad reality is that the world and humankind are ruled largely by two forces, the force of money and the force of sex. Most people are controlled by this. The gentleman who made his comment earlier about Marquette, why are you talking about this? I want to hear about women. He's controlled by sex. The other major controlling force is money. Money is going to be created when you own land, when you can dominate land, or when you can create all the products and services that the world uses. China has made itself the factory of the world. And because of that, the Chinese threat is already here, which means that how could America go to war with China when, China supplies our whole consumer economy? How can America go to war with China? Let me teach you something. During World War II, the only reason America was able to prevail against the Nazi menace is because we took our peacetime economy, which was dynamic and the strongest in the world. We converted it into a wartime economy, which is to say the factories that built Ford automobiles, that built all of these different cars, all of Detroit, all of these consumer producing factories, we turned them into wartime factories. They were producing munitions, shells, spare parts, tanks, aircraft carriers, tankers. They were producing weapons. For example, Russia being bigger than Germany created a superior tank. I think it was called the Panzer. And the Russians created an inferior tank. However, because the Russians could produce 3 shitty tanks for every 1 high quality tank that the Germans had, the Russians overwhelmed the Germans by force of numbers, you see? And China can do the same thing. China can overwhelm us in force of numbers with the number of soldiers they have, greatly outnumber our number. Further, their consumer economy can quickly be converted into a wartime economy. And all those factories that they have, just imagine how quickly they can pump out weapons. It's a terrifying thing. So China's already won. And that's because America has not had a meaningful strategy. One thing America would have done if they were clever is they would have kept China out of Africa. Africa is basically the resource storehouse of the world, whether you're talking about precious gems, you're talking about the materials that are used in computers and cell phones, you're talking about lumber, you're talking about all variety of natural resources. You got to go to Africa to get them. And when you go through Africa, for example, in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa, half of the signage is written in Mandarin. You go through South Africa, you're in a luxury hotel, the exit signs have English and Mandarin. So China is already being very strategic, and not only in Africa, even in different small countries you may not be familiar with, they own the airports or they'll own the ports there, because China will give a loan, an aggressive predatory loan to these weak, economically depressed countries. And they'll say, hey, Kenya, if you can't pay the loan, no problem. We'll just take a 100-year lease on your airport, or we'll take a 100-year lease on your rail system. And so they basically own the primary, financial assets of the country. It's quite crazy. I mean, it's not crazy for the Chinese. It's brilliant for them. It's crazy for the Africans, and it's crazy for America if they think they're going to maintain world domination going up against a unified power like China that's highly organized, very cash liquid, willing to invest the cash, and they have just the Communist Party. There's no warring between Democrats and Republicans. They're a unified front. Cadet writes, racism is white supremacy, means people who believe through speech, thought, and action that they should dominate and control and mistreat people who are classified as non-white. Cadet, you are speaking the language of Neely Fuller, who wrote a book called, the United National Compensatory Code of Thought, Speech, and Act for the Victims of Racism, White Supremacy. And his ideas were popularized by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, whom I have had the pleasure of meeting and talking to personally one-on-one in Washington, D.C. Thank you for sharing that. I think that there's a lot of wisdom in what you share, but you should also remember that by the definition of whites, most of them historically have not identified the Jews as white, number one. And then number two, certainly the Chinese are categorized under yellow, and you don't see white supremacy defending very well against the Chinese. So I think this is something that makes sense, but certainly we should think a little bit different, a little bit deeper on it as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. There's wisdom here. Jaded, in reference to the gentleman who said, let's talk about these hoes, right? He's too small-minded. This is big boy talk. Absolutely. Cadet writes, it's a global system. White supremacy dominates all area of activity: economic, education, entertainment, law, labor, politics, religion, sex, and war. Again, he's referring to the book and knowledge shared by Neely Fuller, who is a tremendous scholar. I highly recommend that you check him out. Cadet, thank you for sharing this. Brandon writes, Marquette out here serving food for thought, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yiddy! True story. Vancho sends through the super chat. Truly appreciate it. Whoa. Paulo writes, faith, wisdom, respect, responsibility, accountability, and be at service to others. That's what makes leaders. Be the change you wish for the world. This is true. I totally agree. So many of us give lip service, but we don't give action. One of the things that we must do, and we're going to start in Las Vegas, Nevada first. So shout out to the Saints who are in Las Vegas. We are going to start getting into government so that we can create change. What I realized in understanding the LGBTQ mafia, the way they've dominated is they started in education. I knew this because I joined Teach for America because I wanted to help people when I was a young, ignorant man. I was young. I didn't have experience or good guidance. I thought helping people, I'd go into become a public school teacher in Baltimore, some of the worst schools in the country, so I would be of help. And I was in this program called Teach for America, where they take students who graduate from prestigious university, generally Ivy Leagues. They put you into some of the worst schools in America so that you may do good. And after your 2-year requirement, maybe when you go on to become a judge or a lawyer or a politician, you remember these poor people and you try to support them. Now, when I was in Teach for America and they were training, they were often teaching about LGBTQ and transgender children. And that's when they started to spread the poison to the teachers, these new teachers. And then teachers went into the classroom and spread the poison to 150 students a day as they would teach in middle schools and high schools and elementary schools. And that's why these kids grow up with miseducation and misinformation. And so now we must take control of the public education apparatus. And let me clue you in. When you look at something like fascism, paradigmatic fascism was created by the Italians, not the Nazis. It was created under Mussolini, and the chief philosopher of fascism is a gentleman by the name of Giovanni Gentile, and he wrote several books or several works on this philosophy. And his number one aim was to control the education system so that he could teach kids fascism, and they were raised with this thinking. Just like poison is put into the mind strategically and systematically, poison must be cleaned from the mind strategically and systematically. If your children are a victim of having to attend public school, they're being imbued with foolish, destructive ideas that will cause them identity issues and cause them to largely be confused in the society. So we really need to get into that, really dig into that educational system. We're going to start in Las Vegas. That's where we will start our power base. Someone asked what my cash tag is. It is cash tag MARQUETT, Marquette. Lil Q, thank you for asking that. I appreciate it. I'm going to hit these super chats. You dig? Okay. I'm really amazed at the turnout, Saints. I mean, I'm just so thankful and honored that there's so many honorable men and women who want to think about the big ideas of our day. They want to be a part of the solution. Cadet writes, I'm glad you know what's going on the globe. IT is bringing dominated ad. Well, Saint, I'm not sure what you mean, if I'm being honest. Can you paraphrase that super chat so that I can address it? Please forgive me for my the limits of my understanding. Kenny Brisbane writes, the homie. Truly appreciate that, Saint. Thank you for the support, the tuition. Okay. Now it's funny because when I re-scroll down, it's showing me some super chats it did not show me before. Kevin White, formerly known as Swiffer Wedjet, our homie, writes, quote, democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what they are going to have for dinner. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Wow. Benjamin Franklin. but we allow ourselves to be pimped out of our rights. So true. And one of my favorite people to study is Benjamin Franklin, a truly brilliant man. And I know that we all know that. But if you were to take out the time to read almost any biography written about him, even to look at a documentary on YouTube, you will be astounded at the extent of his knowledge and really about how he built his career and created a path as a man, a remarkable individual. And I agree, democracy is a curious thing. If you're not organized, surely you will be at disadvantage in a democracy. And the funny thing is, we don't have a democracy in which most people participate anyways. In fact, we don't have a democracy. We have what is called a republic. Bruh, why? Writes, I don't believe in end time prophecy. I think somebody understands manifesting reality through collective thought. So people wrote down what they want. I don't believe in end time prophecy. Agree. I think this planet will carry on and carry on. I think someone understands manifesting reality through collective thought. I don't think collective thought will impact reality. I think collective action will impact reality. We have an excess of talkers and an excess of thinking, overthinking, you might say, but we have a deficit of people who take action, especially people on the correct side of morality. And that is why we've organized Assassin, so that upright men and women can come together in goodness, be among one another in healthy living, and also seek to share that with the world. So this must be something of action. Michael's Life Cycle writes, you said this word a while ago that means something about the English language being able to be pronounced in a different ways. I can't remember the word. I think it was orthographic. No, it was orthography. Yes, English is a language of deep orthography, which is to say that some English words, due to the lack of accent marks, can be pronounced in different ways. Victor Felix writes, great group, peace to the saints. Peace to the saints, absolutely. Vancho writes, CCP is definitely America's #1 enemy. And if you guys don't know what CCP is, that means Chinese Communist Party. But we have to respect their game. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's ironic. They call themselves communists, but the Chinese Communist Party are some of the best capitalists in the world. I know personally, you can watch videos on, I think, this channel where the Chinese Communist Party is touring me around China, trying to get me to open an office for my technology company. I'm a big fan of the Chinese government. I think they run a well-organized society. He writes, they are 2 to 3 moves ahead at least. Oh, absolutely they are. Very, very intelligent people, strategic, shrewd. Ace writes, I'm a double up for the homeboy who checked out. Keep spitting those facts. Boss talk in the building. I appreciate it, right? We lose one sucker, we gain 2 of the big homies. You dig? Let the little boy see the exit. Ozzy writes, China is the supplier. True indeed. And you always want to ask yourself, are you the hustler or are you the customer? Right now, America is the customer. And that's always going to be problematic. That's not true capitalism now, is it? Jalen writes, peace to the saint. Marquette, my brother, is too much of a square for his own good. How can I give him game? Oh, you need to add in some punctuation here, saint. He writes, peace to the saint. Marquette, comma, my brother is too much of a square for his own good. How can I give him game subliminally? The best thing you can do, Jalen, is to be a good example. Surely if he sees you benefiting from your way, he should become curious of your way. Further, you must lay kindness on him. Certainly people cherish that which they discover much more than that which you push onto them, which is to say it's easier to convert someone to this ism by living the ism, showing the fruits of good conduct and clever conduct, as opposed to saying, hey, sit down, let me tell you about this. Let me force my way onto you. That's not the way to do it. So just be an example, keep winning, and people circle around winning. And at the end of the day, if he doesn't circle around winning, then that's not for him. Not everything is for everyone. Devin Nichols writes, this is a tremendous live, heavy game. Truly appreciate that, Saint. And I'm so honored to be among those who are on this call. You know, I really wish I could, I could see all of you, look into your faces, shake your hands, because if you're on this live, you are a real one. Marco writes, AMC theaters are owned by China. It's crazy, right? Yeah, in Vegas, a lot of real estate and a lot of big assets are owned by China. True indeed. Cadet sends through tuition. Truly appreciate that, Saint. Emilio, the armored one, we should have known he was coming sooner or later. He writes, first order of business when the assassin comes into power. Release Ian with his friend Moses from this world. Hey. Sometimes it gets like that, right? Prince sends through tuition. Truly appreciate it. Fooly Cooley writes, I definitely feel the funding in education. I remember reading that the government was talking about getting rid of charter schools. You know, the government talks about a lot of things. What they actually get done is yet another thing. But certainly if you have it in you or in your community to be able to school your children in private schools or schools of your own making, I advise you to do so. One thing I really admire about the Amish community, about the Mennonite community, about the Muslim community, about the Jewish community is that they school their own. Even the Chinese, they have weekend schools called Chinese school, and they school their own. You cannot expect the government to take care of the education of your people and school them in your own interests. I think it's a silly concept. Certainly, as we establish our headquarters for the Sasson, we will have Sasson schools. Believe that. And they're going to learn the real. Let me check out these Cash Apps too. Let me show love to everybody who came through on the Cash App side of things. All right, cool. So shout out to Metal Baby Slayer. Came through again. He's consistent. You dig? Sends through the super chat by a Cash App. Aslan Mahdi sends through the super chat. He writes, peace. Tellus Ford sends through the super chat. One of the new saints. Shout out to him. He writes, all good. Peace to the saints. Truly appreciate it. Good. Okay, we got caught up on those. Thank you. We got a chat, super chat from who?
The Swooviest.
The Swooviest writes, unfortunately, many people are restricted by remaining carnal-minded. Yes. The Swooviest always got game. Am I wrong?
Swiffer Wedjet does too.
Swiffer Wedjet does. Right. The Swooviest continues. It shows a lack of keen sense of observation. If you're only able to analyze vanity, your maturity and growth will become stagnant. Agreed. And I like that the Swooviest identifies maturity. We are in an immature society, the male and the female. Aristotle, who was alive many years ago, a great philosopher, even relevant today, he wrote, in acknowledging the natural development of the male and the female and their priorities, he wrote that the male should marry in his 30s. The female should marry around age 18. He says when they're both in their primes, which is to say fully developed and able to give the other what they require. Quite interesting because in today's era, females are often opting for males their own age, which is ironic because an American woman says, I want a guy to make six figures. Well, if you're 21 and he's 21, he hasn't had a chance to make six figures. But you don't want to date a guy who's 28 or 30. You should if you want six figures. They've had time to do that. A very immature, very vain society, vain globally. Everywhere I travel to, women are blowing up their lips, blowing up their breasts, and blowing up their butt with doctor injections. And I don't even want to say doctors because doctors heal. These Frankenstein monsters of science are destroying the woman's exterior as well as her interior. Shout out to the Swooviest. Carrying on. Gaius Cruz writes, quote, thoughts on a behold a pale horse. You know what? I've heard of this text primarily from some of my more conspiracy-minded friends. I knew this one cat named Shane Lassane when I was a young man, and he got me into reading. He got me reading a lot of alternative texts. And this is one of the texts that he had mentioned, but I never picked up this text. So unfortunately, I can't comment on it because I've never read it, but I do know it is a very well-known work. So if you have a summary or YouTube URL you want to kick over to me, I would certainly check it out. Rudy T, we did get your Cash App. He said, peace, Saint. Truly appreciate that. Absolutely. All right, carrying on. Gaius writes, Gad Saad has great work on ideas being infectious on the topic of education. You know what? That's something to look into. You know, we have so many things in development within the SAS, and our big drive is to make sure that we can keep everyone pure and really pursuing our mission, you know, not pursuing self-interest, but pursuing our mission, getting along and really being a good example, because we have so much to get done. And just today, I was at a monument in Latin America. It was a castle. It took over 100 years to build this castle. I don't want to take 100 years to build the castle of our ideas, the castle that represents the change we're trying to build to bring into the world. We really must leverage the latest of technology. We must also leverage the old technology of human willpower, of focus, and of being upright and pure in our intention. And hopefully through that, we can spread some infectious ideas that sweep the world very quickly, because certainly this world is in need of change and this world is dying. This world has become immoral when we can watch other human beings being bombed and decimated, look at them with no heart, and then be surprised that they want to retaliate. We're in a dark time, but I'm very optimistic about what we can achieve in our era. We have tools that no other revolutionary has had. We have the ability to spread education for pennies on the dollar. Kadwuni writes, great topic, very educational and intellectually stimulating. You are very astute, Marquette. This is food for the brain. Great work. I truly appreciate it. And it means a lot to me when intelligent men can commend me. Any fool can be on YouTube telling a YouTuber, you're the GOAT, you're the greatest of all times. It's rarely true. Yasir writes, your content is so pure and true. I love it and watch everything. One question, don't you fear getting blackballed for your opinions on the LGBTQ community? Do I live with fear? No, I don't. There's something inside of me that drives me to do what I do. And the moment I don't listen to that pure voice, I will no longer be myself. The 3-sentence Quran, number 1, be yourself. Number 2, be good to yourself. Number 3, be good to good people. As a teacher of young people, I was teaching children. It breaks my heart to see a child, a boy, confused on if they're going to grow into a man or if they should grow into a woman. To see them go through this identity crisis, this mental health issue, and be uncared for, and instead have a doctor or the society at large nourish their mental health issues and help them mutilate their body and become something other than that which they truly are. I don't dislike the LGBTQ community. I disagree with their propaganda that they're spreading to the youth. And I could not stand up as a man of integrity and let that happen. So more than being blackballed, I fear not saying anything. I fear letting waves and generations of children suffer. I fear not being myself, which is a man who tries his best to do what's right. Those are the things that I really fear. Carrying on. Thank you for that meaningful question, Yasir. Cato writes, your opinion on Dr. Umar Johnson as a leader. If you follow me on IG, you'll actually see a photo with me and Dr. Umar Johnson. So I'll just put in my IG right here. If people want to check it out, just so they know that I'm not making up things. You'll see photos of me with Dr. Umar Johnson, the mayor of two different mayors of Baltimore, the mayor of the governor of Virginia, the former mayor Bloomberg of New York, a lot of people. And as I said, I also know Dr. Francis Cress Welsing personally. I know Dr. Bilal Phillips. And I don't say this to brag. I say this to know, I know these people as peers. And so I'm not going to say a lot about Dr. Umar Johnson as he's not present right now. But what I will say is that I commend him in as much as he has attempted to be a builder. That's one good thing. I commend him as he's taken a critical lens to public education, which is in tremendous disrepair. I commend him on those things. I disagree with him ideologically on the idea that he has not promoted private education. I disagree with him on the time it's taken him to create the school that he said he was going to create and collected damn near $1 million to do. And I think he's failed at that, not because he's a wicked man, but because he doesn't have the requisite experience. For example, he was never a businessman, never a good capitalist. I tend to not trust people who have not been good capitalists. Me, my whole career has been as a businessman. You gave me $1 million, your school would have been done and running. But Umar I think he kind of overplayed his hand. And I think every leader should be ambitious. And I think that's a good thing. I'm not here to tear down Umar, but I think that he's made a good effort and he's fallen short. And I would hope that Umar supports our work, and certainly I support his work. Certainly, there's some approaches that he's taken that I don't think are the best, and I think there's some transparency that needs to occur with what he's doing with the donations. That's why personally I don't like nonprofit concepts and I don't like donations. I like when you pay for something and you get what you paid for. Thank you for your question. Protest writes, very important topic. Our society is going backward every day, steering away from the facts. Oh, true indeed. And we really have to be even more keen to A, search out the facts, and then B, be able to assess if the facts are indeed factual. it's a curious time. But certainly I won't say that we are in dark times. In some ways we're in dark times, in some ways we're in the best of times. After all, how could I sit in one place and talk to 800 persons at once? These are the kind of crowds that Martin Luther King would talk to, right? In his early stages. And you guys didn't even have to get up out of your homes. So in that way, we really have an advantage. It's a beautiful time. Kerry Khan writes, Martin Luther King is Don King. Wow. Foulness. Devin Nichols writes, this is a tremendous live heavy game. Okay, we addressed that one. I think we may have caught up on all of the super chats. Nope, here we are. I haven't seen Yassine's. It's for some reason it's not showing all of them. I'm gonna keep scrolling down and make sure I get to it. Alexander writes, TikTok is owned by China. Absolutely factual. Mr. Highway writes, you're going to have to start peeking out the window like Malcolm X if you keep spitting these facts. Oh, bruh, if you spent any amount of time with me in person, when I'm with someone, I'm always keeping an eye out because undoubtedly the truth has enemies. And if you stand for something, you automatically stand against something. And those whom you stand against, your enemies will behave as enemies do. So certainly I am keeping an eye out. And by the way, for those of you, when I'm out somewhere traveling throughout the world and I do not say where I am, please do not publicize my location. I would appreciate that. A man who understands how society works is dangerous. Oh, true indeed. True indeed. Matthew writes, Hollywood is owned by China. Matthew, we should have a conversation offline, man. It's crazy when you actually look at the Cold War between the USSR, Russia, formerly the USSR, and the United States. Russia took great efforts to control Hollywood and to spread certain types of propaganda to the American populace. So undoubtedly, the media is a major tool of influence and control, which everyone is trying to get control of. Ghost writes, this is common knowledge to anyone with their ear to the pavement. Glad to see you converse on subjects other than the shallow and the futile. Much love. I truly appreciate that, Saint. And I hope everyone is seeing the master plan and understanding the chess moves. Okay. Bridget, by the way, if you're able to locate that, just read it to me. I appreciate that if that's what you're doing.
Oh, no, that's not what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'll look for it.
Michael's life cycle writes, how do you feel about being in the stock market right now? I'm not in the stock market currently. I think the cryptocurrency markets are interesting right now because they're very volatile. Okay, I found Yassine's super chat. He writes, everyone needs to get on the second channel, The Saint. And shout out to Bridget for looking out.
I think you just sent a new one.
Okay, yeah. So I saw it come in at the top. I just clicked it right now. Yassine, the funny thing, bruh, I don't know why. If anything, yours should be popping up at the top since you're like a damn near verified official big ass channel. I'm wondering if Google is playing games with me. Truly appreciate the support, Yassine. So that's my opinion on the stock market. Ahmed writes, how is pornography legal and accessible to kids? Ahmed, that's funny that you say that because the American society has changed radically over time. Consider the fact that America was started by religious zealots. America was started by the Christian version of ISIS, by the Christian version of Al-Qaeda, which is to say these were religious extremists, Puritans, the guy on the Quaker box, these like Amish looking kind of personalities. These are the people who came here for religious freedom to live and worship God in the way that they saw fit. very, very pure religious people, highly into morality, even such that they would burn women, accusing them of being witches. So they were looking for evil, trying to destroy it. And now children can see pornography. And here's the funny thing, Ahmed, everything's pornographic now. You go on Instagram, all the big accounts are butt models. Models, right? Everyone has an OnlyFans account, and the society is becoming such that we accept it as normal. You're an entrepreneur because you're showing your vagina for $10.99 a month. I mean, come on. It's outrageous. And that is why it is up to men and women like us to say, we're going to follow this 3-sentence Bible, this 3-sentence Quran. We're going to be ourselves. We're going to be good to ourselves and be good to good people. And a part of being ourselves is standing up for morality because we are moral people. That does not mean you have to look down on anyone, but rather we're going to lift you up. We're going to tell you, hey, love, showing your butthole on the internet is not worth the price of your integrity. There's no price anyone can pay for you to live as a prostitute and lose your integrity, especially when you might have children and your children will know that there are nude and pornographic photos of you floating around on the internet. When I was a kid, we used to play the dozens, African Americans, you crack jokes on each other. I'm just trying to imagine cracking jokes on people in this era when I can see your mom's butthole on the internet. Lord Jesus, I would be roasting people. Mark writes, super chat from Essex Moneymakers. He writes in all caps, ask your question. Okay, if you need to re-chat it, re-super chat it, just type super chat in all caps and then write your question. Please let us not have any dishonest person write that they've super chatted when they did not. We have had that unfortunate experience. Shout out to Ricardo for sending through the CAD. We hit that one. We hit that one. Ahmed, yes, I agree, my dear brother. And I hope none of the saints are engaging in pornography because it is destructive to the soul. Anthony Miranda writes, Marquette, no E at the end. I can't help but feel like America is moving more towards socialism, which of course then leads to communism. You think that could happen? Anthony, nothing is too strange to have happened. Nothing is too strange to happen. Could it happen? Absolutely. Is it in development? Undoubtedly. And we all know that communism, for the most part, does not work. It is an inferior economic and social system, as evidenced by the fall of the Soviet Union. And in fact, not only is communism a bad system, it's so bad that people try to flee it. The USSR had walls around it. In Germany, the DDR, which is Eastern Germany, which was a socialist state of the USSR, a satellite, they had a walling in the citizens so they could not escape because communist economies do not produce well. Now, people may be looking at the Chinese Communist Party and saying, well, what about them? They're not communists. They're capitalists. If you study Chinese history and economics, there's a gentleman named Deng Xiaoping, and Deng Xiaoping had economic reforms that turned China into a capitalist country. So China is not wholly communist nor wholly capitalist. Undoubtedly, China is a controlled capitalist economy. And it doesn't have a full market economy, but it does use strong market principles, which is why it has been able to thrive. It's a planned economy in some ways. Hopefully, not all those terms went over your head, but long story short, communism does not work. Shamari writes, salute to the saint and the sinner. What do you think of the false propaganda suggesting Black folks are targeting Asians? This is crazy to me because I grew up in California where Asians are everywhere. I just couldn't imagine this to be true. I personally don't know any Asian person who's experienced it. I don't know any Black person who's committed it, and there's no like motivating force. This for sure is concerning because we're in an era where something can be said with no evidence. This sounds kind of crazy to me. It makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm glad you mentioned that, Saint. And shout out to all my Asians, you heard me? I'm all the way with Asians, you heard me? I've lived in Asia. I mess with Asians heavy. Like, this is crazy. And if this is true, it's outrageous. I condemn it wholeheartedly. But I just don't believe it because when have Black people organized against anybody? Black people can't even organize in favor of themselves. When have they organized against people? It sounds outrageous. Super Chat writes, your opinion on Dr. Umar Johnson as a leader. We hit that one. Truly appreciate the reminder, Saint. We're just moving a touch slower. Milad. And shout out to Milad because I've had the pleasure of speaking with him in a consultation. A businessman, a good capitalist, you dig? So when he comes out with his product, I know he's making a few tweaks on it right now. Surely we will be sharing his URL. And if you want to book a consultation, you can do so at thesasson.com, www.thesasn.com/consultation. I'll write that here for all those good capitalists who want to invest in themselves or who just want to have a conversation on relationships or building whatever it is they're working on, self-development, physical development, what have you. You can book your consultation there, or you can email Bridget@fletchapp.com. Be happy to have that one-on-one time with you. Milad writes, quote, "You're speaking about what needs to be spoken about. Many people regard this as conspiracy, but saints know this is reality." Indeed. And in fact, the things that I speak of can be verified. We are in the information age, and I encourage people to use information. And one thing I will assure you about me is if I misspeak or provide misinformation, I will correct myself. There's nothing wrong with correction. You see, those who value truth are always willing to say, hey, I was short of the truth. This is what's real. So I'm always happy to build on knowledge. Jamal Swift writes, comes through with a strong super chat. You dig? Okay. He writes, peace. Though I don't agree with all you say, I truly respect how studied you are and how strong you stand in your beliefs. What do you think of the vaccine? Well, Jamal, I appreciate that. And I don't expect that anyone agrees with 100% of what I say. God damn it, I don't even agree with 100% of what I say. My thoughts on the vaccine, me as a strong, healthy, vigorous man, I don't plan on taking it. I don't plan on taking it. And if I were you in perfect health, I probably wouldn't take it. The death rate is very low, and it seems as though it's something that is not quite necessary. I say that as a man who was in China doing business on a multi-city tour hosted by the government, shook hundreds of hands, maybe 1,000, and I came out of there fine. I was in China. When were we in China?
Like right when COVID was happening.
Is that December 2019? December 2019. If I didn't get it, something ain't right. You dig? And I was also there. Bridget didn't get it. And we were there 2 times. We were in Shanghai in November.
Beijing,
no,
then Shanghai.
We were in Beijing in, was it October 19? Yeah. We're in Beijing, October 2019. Left, the Chinese government invited us back, financed us to come back. We went to a ton of cities, and that was in December 2019. That's when COVID really should have been around. And if it was around, we would have had it. We went everywhere. Rudy T writes, all megalomaniacs only perpetuate interests that serve themselves and lobbyists. Red and blue is their tactic to keep us divided. We must attack the tactic. I like that. Oh, yes, indeed. And let us not be true to red or blue because they don't even have clear ideology. I couldn't even tell you what a Republican really stands for. I used to think it was the nuclear family until they told me that they're cool with men marrying men. I should say males marrying males. The leftists, who knows what they believe in? Everything's all good to them. They don't judge. You know, like pretty soon the leftists will be saying pedophilia is yet another sexual lifestyle. Mark my words. Shippy's King writes, hey, bro, appreciate what you do. Quick random question. I'm from Baltimore. Just wondering, where did you teach and what was your experience there? I taught in Booker T, Washington. If you've been in Baltimore, you should know Booker T, Washington. It's over west, you dig? It's by Pennsylvania Avenue. I also taught at the Crossroads School after Booker T, Washington was shut down for being persistently violent. So the Crossroads School was toward Inner Harbor. And my experience was radically different at those 2 institutions. I'd never been anywhere in a school where I saw an entirely Black student body. At Booker T, Washington, every student was Black. I was like, damn, I thought Martin Luther King had integrated things. Apparently not here. So that taught me something about poverty and about segregation in America, that it's alive and well. And Baltimore has a very strong culture. I really very much so enjoy Baltimore. There's a lot of potential in that city. I even bought a home in Baltimore to tell you what I think of it. Erin writes, thoughts on Congresswoman AOC. Curious because she's very relevant in the mainstream. Yes, she clearly has low IQ. Those who are intelligent can tell that she is not the brightest star in the sky, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but she has been used as a tool. And when she is no longer useful, she will be flung aside. She's clearly being puppeted by some more intelligent, wealthier people. And the reason that this AOC congresswoman is being utilized, she's Latina, and the Latino population is the biggest, fastest growing. They're a big voting bloc. And so she's being used probably by people who are not Latino and people who are not poor like she is. They're probably the super wealthy. So she's just a little tool, a silly little woman. And I don't say that to be negative toward women. I say that to be negative toward her and what she stands for. She's not even a woman. She's a child, because only a child can be led like that. She's being controlled. Drew Thomas writes, "Thank you for the lesson, Saint. Truly appreciate you. My pleasure." Matthew Strudwick, back at it. Truly appreciate it, Saint. He writes, "Drop some bombs. More bombs than Biden tonight," right? That's a lot of bombs. Man, that's a lot of bombs. Okay. Tyshawn writes, "Have you heard of Sabir Bey? If so, what are your thoughts? Suggestion for a collab." I've not heard of Sabir Bey, but I've said anyone with the same level of subs, around the 50,000 or higher mark, happy to do a collaboration. Consider me as one who has accepted the invitation. Feel free to connect with them and set it up. So, if we're on the same level or he's farther up, let's get it in. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Shippy's King, I sent you a message on Patreon. You had sent us a message. He sent us a message, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we sent you a response on Patreon. Just want to let you know we're showing love to you, Saint, and we appreciate your support. And Fables shared the Patreon URL. I'm going to go ahead and share it again, patreon.com/the Saint and the Sinner. And that's for those who want to support the work. Because you're right. After I've made videos like this, let's be real, I can't get a job in America, right? Even if I wanted to. And have I lost money doing this? 6 figures. Yes, indeed. High 6 figures. I even made a video one of the days I lost 6 figures doing this very work right here. King Wealth sends through the pound. I believe that's the pound. Truly appreciate it, Saint. Noir sends through a super sticker. Thank you. Blue Collar Billions. Appreciate the support. He writes, quote, "I tend to not trust people who have not been good capitalists." Marquette Burton. Oh, absolutely. If you don't know how to make a buck, which is to add value, which is to bring service to a people, service that's worth paying for, I get suspicious of you, right? Because things we value, we'll pay for. Why do you need a nonprofit, right? Most of the time, you don't need a nonprofit. You just got to offer value. People, they pull out the bread. Believe that. Carrying on. Jan writes, "Hitler imposed lockdown in every city he conquered." Sound familiar. Brandon writes, "Try talking to my ex and I know what you mean now. Laugh my ass off. I need some new cheeks." Absolutely. You want to move forward in life, not backward. And I only give the advice that I think will truly serve you. I never say anything because I think you will like my answer. I just give you the real. Ghost writes, "The motivating factor is more about class and gentrification in the Bay than race." The motivating factor, not exactly sure what he's referring to. So if there's some context you need to give me, please do add it. I don't want to try to respond without more context. And I've lived in the Yay area, so I should be able to relate at a level for sure. Big Cali writes, "Salute, new sub here, been listening for a minute, and I enjoy the content, very valuable wisdom." That's what I'm talking about. And shout out to them Cali boys. You did, because I done lived in it from the bottom to the top. Absolutely. King J writes, "Peace to the saints. Too many people have too much irrelevant information about things that indirectly affect them and not enough things to do." Oh, he's totally right. We're concerned about what the Kardashians are doing. We're concerned about the new iPhone coming out. We're concerned like, oh, did you see so-and-so's new car? It's not your new car. Why are you worried about it? So yeah, absolutely. We are oversaturated with irrelevancy. So I appreciate you pointing out the fact that we need to get focused. There are a lot of things that do affect us. You know, when people were working on in the Twin Towers and then all of a sudden an airplane hit it and that mug dropped down to the ground and people died in there. Well, the family members were not able to add up that this was a result of this government that you're financing with tax dollars and their aggressive actions throughout the world, namely in the Middle East. You weren't focusing on those relevant things, and now you've become victim. You become victim of your inattention. You become victim of the fact that you ignored one of your primary responsibilities as a citizen. All I'm saying is we got to take responsibility. Certainly, I don't condone a coward attack. Certainly, I don't condone the attack of civilians, and not even Islam condones that attack. In the Quran, it reads that to murder one innocent person is like killing all of mankind at once. There is no sacred text that takes such a strong stance against terrorism or such a strong stance against wanton murder of innocent persons, of civilians. Indeed. Tashim writes, I appreciate you, bro. I support you. I appreciate that. I want to protect you one day. Hey, I truly appreciate that, Tashim. Inshallah, that will be the case. Sooner than later, hopefully, because we do not know how many days we have. Lucas Longhurst writes, people who call facts conspiracy theories just prefer to outsource their thinking. Nice. Also, agree on the vaccine. Do you think they'll require it for travel? You know, the curious thing is that the government, let's not use they, let's always try to use accuracy because we need people to know who we're talking about, who the guilty party is. The government already requires you to take a COVID-19 test when exiting and when returning to the United States. I think this is already a deep form of control, which we should really be suspicious of. And I don't know what the science of the test consists of. And historically in the United States, we cannot overlook the fact that the government has been directly responsible for infecting people with diseases. Look up the Tuskegee experiment. Not only did they infect Black people unknowingly with deadly diseases, they did it to Black people who were a part of the armed forces, a part of the military, a part of the government. The Tuskegee experiment, read up on how they infected Black men and their wives and their children with the syphilis disease, biological warfare. To imagine that this could not ever happen again would be foolish because at the time that was occurring, people were saying, oh, it can't occur again. We're way past systemic racism or systemic white supremacy, whatever you want to call it. That was well after enslavement that occurred. So I never put anything past a wicked people. What would they do to me or you as citizens that they wouldn't do to the Syrian people? They kill innocent Syrian people just for their economic interests or just because of a lobby of a foreign country. You think you and I are that important that we wouldn't get done dirty? Oh, let us not fool ourselves. Tyshawn Harris writes, have you heard? Okay, I hit that one already.
You might have more cash apps that came through as well.
Okay, let me check, make sure I haven't missed any cash apps. Thank you for the reminder. I think I'm caught up on the cash apps. Oh, nope. Okay. Tellus Ford sends through the cash app. He writes, Miss Super Chat. I think I caught up on that one because I saw his other one that said miss. So I think we're all square. If not, just write Super Chat in all caps in the chat and we will address it. I think we should be caught up on that. Man, people are really about this game today. Richard Brown writes, try being gay. Try being a gay, put out loud in most Middle East countries, they'll lop your head off. I'd rather not try that, but I will tell you I have traveled widely in the Middle East through various Arab countries. No disrespect to anybody, but I've observed some unfortunate things occurring in the Middle East. The brothers there are not as consistently thorough as one would hope. Okay, make sure that we got all these super chats. Just bear with me as I address them. Okay. Oh, Mackenzie, shout outs. Good to see you again, Saint. He writes for the leadership class. Absolutely. And the number one key to leadership, which I want to imbue you with, is don't be scared. Don't live with fear. This is the worst way to live. And there is a series I did on Patreon for my members. It's exclusive. Patreon.com/The Saint and the Sinner. I analyzed the book The Prince by by Niccolo Machiavelli. He was an Italian diplomat, and he wrote a book about how to acquire power, how to maintain and protect power. And this is also a book of leadership. And I did like a 6 to 7 video series. I highly recommend you check that out. And what you'll notice in there is he states fortune, meaning success, favors the bold, meaning he who is not fearful. He writes that fortune, success, fortune is like a woman, and that fortune will submit to he who beats her. Which is to say, be aggressive and be bold and go after it and make fortune submit to you, which is to say, take the world in your hand. Do not be scared. Let me address these super chats. Paolo writes, you should try to get in touch with Douglas Murray. He's the author of the book, Madness of Crowds. Paolo, if you want to make the connection, feel free. I already have a whole to-do list. I don't do much time reaching out to folks. Khalid agrees, but I will tell you that I empower all of the saints to reach out if there's someone you want to set something up with. I'll be happy to do it. My answer is yes.
There's been a lot of consistent super chats. I've heard Paula's name.
Yes, he's been very consistent with the super chat, showing a lot of support. It means a lot. Recycling is good for the environment, since through the cat, he writes, Marquette, what's your thoughts on the digital yuan? I'm assuming he's referring to a Chinese-backed digital currency. Let me see. Let's Google that real quick. Beijing explores a digital yuan cross-border payments with central banks. I tell you this, Venezuela attempted the petrodollar, and Venezuela attempted a digital currency. It flopped, obviously, because America was against it. I tell you, if the Chinese does a digital currency, it's going to be very successful. I do not think the Chinese fail. They do not do things to fail. It will be very successful. Certainly with cryptocurrencies, my experience has been if you get it when it first comes out, it's just like an IPO, right? An initial coin offering, shall we say. The price is going to skyrocket. So what you want to do is you want to let it skyrocket and not buy it when it's shooting up. And then it'll come back down. It'll reach like a stable point. When it reaches that equilibrium, then I'd probably go ahead and gobble up a little bit of it. And certainly I think it'll be a good reserve currency. And China is at war with America to be the world's reserve currency. In different parts of Africa, you can use the Chinese currency. So these are very shrewd business people, very shrewd capitalists. So certainly I think it'll be a good idea. I will get some. Brandon writes, not rhetorical, I'm curious of your opinion. How can we in good conscience do business with China knowing they seek our destruction? Well, when you say we, it depends on who the we is. Are you saying we as Americans, just we as individuals? And China, like every other country, doesn't necessarily seek America's destruction. They seek their own superiority. And in rising to the superior position, they must move out whoever's currently at the top. So you can never take personal feelings or emotions. You have to understand that Israel will be the number one fan of Israel. China will be the number one fan of China, and they will push their own individual interests. Certainly we can do business with China because as an individual capitalist, you have to take care of yourself. 3-sentence Bible, be yourself, be good to yourself. So if you're going to do business with China and will help you help yourself, I absolutely recommend it. Here's the thing. What you do with your dollar matters. I don't think doing business with China is an evil thing. And I don't think the Chinese government are evil people. And in fact, I would commend the Chinese in as much as you've never seen the Chinese government going around the world behaving in an aggressive way. Sure, they say Taiwan is a part of China and they say Hong Kong is a part of China. And historically, that's factual, right? That's the truth. So I can't hate them for that, but they've never tried to take over North Korea. They've never tried to take over any other country. They've just tried to defend themselves and defend their interests. And I think that's reasonable. Roderick Warren, this is my homie that I grew up with. If you've read The Black Box, you will hear this man's name, a man I admire very much. And so it's an honor to hear from my brother. You dig? So blessings to him and his family. Really happy to hear from him. I'm gonna post my link to the Black Box soon so that you can check it out. He is in there. Roderick Warren writes, thanks for the inspiration, brother. It's amazing what you're doing, especially knowing what we come from and went through together. Blessings. That's real spit, you dig? Real spit right there. You heard me? And here's the thing, what we come from. Yeah, the mud, the gutter. Yeah. And the funny thing is that you may see me today and not understand the distance that I've traveled. And he's traveled a great distance, and many of you will travel a great distance. And that's why I wrote the Black Box, so you understand how to get through that distance without stepping in too many potholes. And in the Black Box, I even tell you, get a mentor. Mentors, or people who can give you advice, these are people who have already lost money. These are people who have been scarred emotionally. These are people who have had setbacks, and they're giving you advice and guidance so that you don't have to go through the same trials. Shout out to Roderick Warren. It's good when good people show you love. I truly appreciate that. He doesn't exist, right? Super chat. Can only people who live in America send a super chat? No, we've for sure gotten super chats in all currencies. So anyone can send a super chat. Thank you for that question. Sometimes people send PayPals because that's easier for them. So I'll go ahead and put my PayPal email in there. So it's marquettb as in boy at gmail.com. If a PayPal is easier from your country. Bence writes, always fresh with the live streams. Greetings, Marquette. Peace to the saints. Peace to you as well. Peace to the saints. Carrying on. Knowledge Seeker writes, what do you think of these celeb imams like Umar Suleiman or Linda Sarsour that are marching with the Rainbow Nation? What the rainbow? Ya Allah. Look, may they receive justice. Number one, an imam is a religious person. An imam is like a pastor or a preacher in the Christian religion. These are scholars, and clearly these persons who are marching with the Rainbow Nation, they are misguided. They are not walking the straight path. And in all of the holy books, in Christianity, in Islam, in Judaism, that is the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews, they all believe that there's capital punishment for sodomy, which is, I'm not telling anyone to go enact that. What I am saying is that there's a strong stance by the Most High against this behavior. And so to see people call themselves imams following this way is clear blasphemy. And may they receive justice for creating corruption in the land. You know, in Islam, they say, Jazakal khayr. Oh man, I've been out of the deen. Ya Allah. They say, may you be rewarded. But in the Arabic, when you say Jazakal, I'm done. I need some height. Can you give me some water? Good Lord. In Arabic, forgive me. In Arabic, you would say to someone, may you be rewarded, right? Which can be a good thing or a bad thing. Like, may you be rewarded for your deeds. So if your deeds are good, may Allah reward you for your goodness. If your deeds are bad, may Allah reward you with what is appropriate. And may they have that. It's very sad. What I don't understand about the LGBTQ mafia, rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to live in this alternative way, this way that is out of line with the mainstream, why try to hijack a whole religion? You see Christian churches with the rainbow flag. This is out of line with Christianity. This is out of line with Islam. This is out of line with Judaism. Why try to hijack the religion and bring poison rather than just saying I'm not religious, which is what you actually are? This is the era we live in. This is why we must be strong against them, because they are lying. This is the problem. I would be fine with them if they said, we're going to live our life, pursue our own version of happiness. But instead, they're trying to pervert everything. They're perverting religion. They're lying about what is clearly written and trying to bring you into their way of living. This is some of the most delicious water I've ever had. Kadwoni writes, my observation is that the West's relationship with Africa is exploitative. Yeah. Whilst the Chinese is more mutually beneficial. No. Although China benefits more. Yes. Then They do leave behind roads and infrastructure which are permanent. This is true. America used to operate in a similar way. Undoubtedly, you must engage in development from within. You know, if you look at the Soviet Union was a curious place in that when they helped their satellite states develop, they would send engineers and help build infrastructure. They weren't so extractive. It was in some ways a bit of an altruistic movement. I'm not going to lie. It failed. But the Chinese certainly are charging a tax for all of their services. They're being well compensated. So I would say the West and China are both exploitative. But at the end of the day, you never get something for nothing. So you must pay a fee for everything. There was one African leader, Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe, who knows that the true value in any place is the land. There is no wealth that comes from anywhere but the land. And he was wise enough to make sure that Zimbabwe was for the Zimbabweans, even though some of the people who left the country when he purified it left with the skills needed to cultivate the land. But over the long term, his plan will be the best for the people of that soil. So it's always better to develop from within. And you'll see wise places in the Middle East even, or even Cuba was a great example. You know, they'll have the foreigners there. They'll learn what they need to learn from the foreigners, and then they will refine their own crude oil. Then they will produce their own factories instead of letting the foreigners stay there and suck the blood of their nation. But, you know, I envision a global Sasson where we can all be of one. We can all live with good values and share among one another. This will not be a world without competition because competition and hierarchy is natural. But we can live in the true meanings of competition, cum and pedis from the Latin, which is to strive together. And in competition, and we find where the hierarchy is, we fit into the appropriate places, and we can respect people for where they are and not be jealous, hateful, and destructive, constantly at one another's throats. Jan writes, Israel has a corona passport. Dang, I didn't know about that. Yikes, that's rough. Very rough. Anthony writes, thank you for doing this live. I used to ignore these topics, but now I understand the importance of it. Bruh, me too. I used to be a little bit scared to dig into this knowledge because I felt I was so small and there was not much I could do. But the fact that we have like 1,000 people watching this lets me know that I'm not alone. 1,000 people can do a lot. Vladimir Ilyich Prokhanov-Lenin, Russian revolutionary, wrote that history is created by a directive minority, not by the masses, but by a directive minority. That's why the Israeli lobby is so powerful. They're not the masses. The Jewish people are a very small percentage, but they're powerful together. They're organized, they're intelligent. They are a leadership class, and we too are of that leadership cloth. And so we can be effective. So I no longer ignore these topics because what I realized while good men like myself and like you and good women like you, while we were sleeping, leaving politics to those dirty people, they were creating laws that control us. They were creating policy and education that control and influence our children. And while we slept, the society changed into a dark place. And so now it is time for us to regain influence. Tom came through with the strong super chat. He writes, the more I experience and view from the outside, the idea of globalist seemed to ring true. The more I experience and view from the outside, the idea of globalists seemed to ring true. This perception of duality in American politics seems to fade when these elected officials cease the talk and show us their actions. That's real. Hey, cheers. I'm going to break that back down because that was so real. Tom said, don't listen to the babbling of I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican. We're on opposite sides. Observe the warmongering actions. Observe that Bush started a war in Iraq. He's a Republican. Obama extended a war in Iraq. He's a Democrat. They're collaborating on the same evil. Yeah, so factual. And both parties fail to rebuild American power and American infrastructure. Yeah. Khalid writes, as a Muslim, I really don't like the Western-supported Middle Eastern countries like Saudi, Dubai. Dubai is not a country, my dear brother. You mean the UAE. Why are you supporting people who will exploit you? Fair enough. Robert Jones, peace to the saint, he writes, what are your thoughts on critical theory, the Frankfurt School? I recently reviewed the philosophical roots of the left, and it does sound like they're set up for moral decay. Moral decay is led astray. Robert, you are beyond what I'm on right now. So, for example, if you're talking about critical race theory, I've heard of critical race theory. If you're just talking about critical theory, that I'm unfamiliar with. Further, the Frankfurt School, I'm also unfamiliar with. So these are the limits of my knowledge. Certainly, if you shot me a YouTube link, I will become a student of these two schools. What I can affirm is that certainly the left is an instrument of moral decay. There's no doubt about it. When you are a group of people who promote an idea of sexual liberality, which is to say you can have sex with whomever, however, and you're also exposing the youth to pornography on a regular basis, surely the society will become in disrepair. Why? Well, you're telling women that they can have sex with anyone. Okay, now we're increasing the number of unwanted pregnancies, which means we're increasing the number of single mothers, aka lonely mothers. And all the data indicates that lonely mothers, the children in those broken families, are more inclined to criminality, more likely to be incarcerated, more likely to have low educational attainment. So we're yielding bad products, meaning broken children, which add up to a broken society. When you tell men that they needn't be thoughtful about their sexual partners, and we over-sexualize the male by allowing them to have easy access to pornographic material, whether they're on an actual pornographic website or even socializing on Instagram, and there's all these big butt models who parade as exercise gurus, even though they've gotten plastic surgery, they have fake abs and the whole nine, and they got their OnlyFans. And so men are bombarded with sexually oriented stimulus. Then yeah, it's going to create a morally decadent society, a society that is morally decayed. And that society will not have men who are into leadership. It'll have men who are overconsumed with vagina. Chasing vagina is their primary occupation. And that will lead to destruction. So I totally agree with you there. Shout out to the societies like South Korea, where they block a lot of pornographic content. And I tend to agree with that. Max Sauce, truly appreciate the support. He sent through the super chat. Drip LLC writes, peace to the saints. Any tip on productivity/time management? Yes. Number one, create that to-do list before you go to bed. Then you have a reason to wake up. Make sure that to-do list is prioritized, meaning what are the things that must get done, the things that are big in terms of making me $1 or impacting my overall trajectory. Make a to-do list. Cross some things off of the to-do list, even if you don't do them, meaning some of these things on this list, if I don't do them, nothing happens. If I don't do it, I don't lose money, I don't lose a relationship. Let me just make my life easier by removing some of these things. Refer back to that to-do list every moment you have some downtime until it gets done. That's going to help you out. Bruh, why? Right. Side note, if you're making out with a woman and her breathing smells garlicky, how would you get out of that situation? Happened to me recently. Well, number one, I would stop making out with her. And, we all like to enjoy some good Italian food. Maybe she had some garlic bread. If that occurs again, I would just stop making out with her. There's nothing wrong with stopping something that you don't enjoy. A real man is able to leverage honesty. Now, if you're going to be with her long term, for sure, you're going to need to be able to have honest conversations. We learn people through conflict, actually. So nothing wrong with being honest. If it's a short-term thing, it's a one-night situation, just stop kissing her and then move her on to the other activities you would like to engage in. David with a Y writes, I was in Japan and China December 2019. I'm healthy as could be. Anyways, keep speaking the facts. Bro, I can't wait to get over to Japan myself. And yeah, exactly. Isn't it funny? And the ironic thing, in a time where people are under the attack by a pestilence that's ravishing the whole planet Earth, and we need strong immune systems, they close down gyms, right? And gyms and exercise are things that support the immune system. Very peculiar actions by the government. The Black Malik Diallo sends through a currency I'm not familiar with, but we do appreciate it. Let us know what it is. Peace to the saints. Much respect to you. I will book a consultation in the future. For now, I just want to pay tuition. Thank you, Saint. Fables writes, get the likes up. Fables is a moderator now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Fables, by the way, you're a moderator. We appreciate your continued support. Roderick, we got the super chat. Truly appreciate that, Saint. It's love, man. Albert sends through the tuition. Appreciate it. Kulibali, who's been with us a long time, truly appreciate it. Nilfani says, peace to the saints, peace to you, big dog. I greatly appreciate the knowledge that you're consistently dropping. Looking forward to the conference. Absolutely. It'll be round 2. I can't wait to have you all in person. A sower of seed shares a super chat. More seeds to collect and sow. I appreciate your knowledge, brother. A sower of seed, thank you very much for sharing your support. Paulo comes through strong with the pounds. He writes, brother, thank you for everything. Need to get some sleep because tomorrow need to do breakfast for the community of my church. That's a beautiful thing. Shout out to the people of the book. Keep up the amazing work and God bless. I truly appreciate that. He's a real one. You dig? He's been good to good people. Absolutely. Robert Warfel writes, great message, bro. Peace to the saints. Peace to the saints. Carrie writes, I'm not afraid to admit I was wrong. Me too. May we all be that way. That is truly manly to be able to admit when you are wrong. And the funny thing is that you'll notice certain types of individuals cannot do that. Prince writes, China's slowly taking over the Philippines. They've been working on that for a while, bruh, on everything. Onomatopoeia writes, what are your personal insights on the highly controversial social media maven, Tariq Nasheed? I think he's an opportunistic disruptor. He shared some information that people find to be empowering, at least intellectually empowering. I don't know that it's caused them to change their life. Many individuals, friends I know, have sent me his information. I think that he is primarily an entertainer and that, he gives out good information. That's fantastic. And I am step 2. I'm the doer. I'm the organizer. We're here to get things done. So, we appreciate his work. And then we just pick up where he left off with the actions, which is the most critical part. Kemal writes, peace to the saints. Truly appreciate that. Okay, just going to hit these super chats. And thank you to everyone who showed up for me today. It means a lot. Albert, Milfani, Paulo, Robert, Prince, Onomatopoeia, Kamal. You think this is Kamal I think this is Kamal that we had the consultation with.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Kamal. We had a consultation, good brother from Sweden, businessman, very successful, good heart. And this is all I could wish for all of you, is that you be a good capitalist, that you have a good heart. Life will be very beautiful. You will be persistently happy. Ola asks, what's your religion, Marquette? I don't promote religion on here. The only thing that I do regularly promote, because I don't want to be divisive, we have too many differences based on religion. We even have people within the same religion that hate each other, right? So within the Assassin, we come together irrespective of race, religion, nationality. The only thing that I do promote is this ism, Marquettism, which is a way of living that will help you live a persistently happy life, help you be civil, and live in a saintly way that will benefit you and those around you. Just me. Look at your fine ass. Yeah, I love natural hair. Shout out. She writes, I'm loving the intelligence on display, brother. Truly appreciate the support. My love to all of the lady saints. King Wealth writes, mashallah, brother. You keep dropping gems. Hey, thank you, Saint. Yinsun Bay sends through the super chat. Oh, the brother's a swimmer, it looks like. That's a beautiful thing. One of the rites of passage that we're creating for males growing up is that they have to pass a certain test on swimming. One of the brothers writes, I can confirm I am Zimbabwean and I own land. Shout out. May one day I have the privilege stepping foot on your land. Kevin writes, my question is below this. Okay, I don't see it, but we'll keep scrolling, Kevin. I truly appreciate the super chat. SX Moneymakers, back again. He writes, I would rather lose everything than lose my voice. Agreed. Because when you lose your voice, you're truly dead. You don't exist anymore. That's how I live. And I feel the same way, which is why I make such a big push for everyone to join that second channel that we have, because I was banned from YouTube from posting. Excuse me. And during that time, I found that, wow, the powers that be have so much influence to shut me down. And I said, we should never have any system with a single point of failure. And my single point of failure was having a single YouTube channel. And so now we have this backup channel, which I urge you all to join in droves, because there will surely come a time where this current channel will maybe banned. And then there'll come a time where they take off the second channel. And hopefully by that time, we've built our own platform and we have power to fight back in the most appropriate way. Address more of these super chats. Here it is, Kevin Tate. His super chats. He writes, quote, do you feel that since it is commanded in the Sunnah of Muhammad, peace be upon him, to fight all people until they submit to Allah, along with being able to lie to non-believers? Kevin, I have not read that in the Quran. In fact, if you look at the 109th surah, it reads, and please forgive me, one second. It reads, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun la a'budu ma ta'budun wala antum abidun ma a'bud wala ana abidun ma abadtum wala ana abidun ma a'bud. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. Which is to say, in Arabic, it translates essentially to, for you is your way, for me is my way. I will not follow your way. You do not have to follow my religion. Which is essentially one of the clearest indications in the Quran among the Muslims, which is to say, you don't have to be a Muslim. You do not have to follow the deen or this religion. It says, for you is your way, for me is my way. Further, there are parts in the Quran where it says there is no compulsion in religion, which is to say we cannot require you to be of this religion. Further, in the Quran, it reads that you should not undertake the religion of your fathers just because it is the religion of your fathers, which includes Islam, which is to say you must be a student of whatever you purport to practice. A student of Christianity, read the Bible, be critical of it. Read the Quran, be critical of it. And I have been of both of those texts, including the Torah. So number one, you write, since it's commanded in the Sunnah of Muhammad to fight all people until they submit to Allah, I did not read that in the Quran. If you can cite a particular surah, then I will address that. But I will also caution you that I am not an Islamic scholar. I am just an everyday man like you. And further, you write that along with making non-believers, it's okay to lie to non-believers. The only place in the Quran where I read that it's okay to quote unquote lie is not quite lying. It's saying that if you are among an enemy that is hostile to your religion, you may you don't have to pray in front of them, and you don't have to say that you're a Muslim. And if you look at the historical context, when this new religion was coming about, the same thing with Christianity, when this new religion was coming about, there were many who were attacking and murdering the followers of this religion, which is to say you could pray on horseback, which is to say while you're on your way, fleeing, or you don't have to say that you're a Muslim so that you don't meet with persecution. So I would be happy to address any surah you can identify, but otherwise, I find that what you've identified to be incorrect. And I appreciate your super chat and your words. Always happy to dig into knowledge. But again, I'm not promoting Islam. I'm only promoting the ism, Marquettism, which is something for the Christians, the Muslims, the atheists, the non-believers, all who seek knowledge and truth and wish to live in a saintly way. David Dixon sends through the super chat. Truly appreciate that, Saint. Let me make sure we hit these super chats. All kinds of currencies coming in. This is a global movement, you dig? It's amazing how the light of truth shines all over the world. And it's amazing how you could live next to someone. They're the same religion, the same race, same age, and you don't agree. Yet someone on the other side of the world, you can identify with them based on values. That is truly how people connect. Beliefs. Let us not get hung up on the simple things of skin color, of language, of religion. I only speak of religion where it is appropriate, but I'm not here to promote such things. I am not Jesus or Muhammad, peace be upon both of them. I am Marquette Devon Burton. I am not a religious figure, nor am I a preacher or a cleric. Yunsun writes, true self-cultivation and the Most High, do you believe in miracles? Maybe they don't want us to tap into a powerful source of energy as humans. Do I believe in miracles? I suppose my answer is no, in as much if we're talking about like magic or extraterrestrial happenings, no. Do I believe that we can collectively do things that people might look at as a miracle? Surely. You know, the pyramids in Egypt look like a miracle. It's quite extraordinary. There are a lot of things that have occurred in human existence that look like miracles, but I think that collaboration among upright, hardworking men, the works that you'll create will always look like a miracle to those who don't have faith and those who don't believe. We should pride ourselves on creating miracles. So in that sense, I do believe in miracles, but if we're talking about things that are extraterrestrial, no, I don't. I'm going to address these super chats. Hoover D writes, bless you, brother. I traveled to 5 Muslim nations and have interacted with peaceful people who have showed me nothing but love. The truth is most people follow our 3-sentence Bible, whether they know it or not. Yes, this is very true. And I appreciate that all of the true believers of the books, whether it's a Jew, a Muslim, a Christian, when I say a 3-sentence Torah or a 3-sentence Bible or a 3-sentence Quran, they never take offense because at the core of their text are these 3 sentences. Number 1, be yourself. Number 2, be good to yourself. Number 3, be good to good people. They never have a problem because this is the truth encapsulated in their books. It is just so short that anyone can remember it, and it's easy to transfer this knowledge to others. And that was one of the challenges with the good books, is that they're very long and people don't remember them. And I struggled for a time in my mind thinking, why can't I think of a way to bring this knowledge into something that's simple and easy for all of humankind to adopt? And then I went to sleep one day and I woke up and it was on my tongue. 3-sentence Bible, be yourself. Be good to yourself. Be good to good people. And it was a mysterious thing, and as much as I didn't think of it, it was just in my mind as soon as I woke up. And so we are all blessed in that regard, because I truly believe that if we can live by that simple thing, which is easy for everyone to understand, no matter their IQ or background, we can be very successful. Hascom writes, sent a different super chat earlier, but didn't pop up. New question though. How to be a savage when needed, carry guns, but avoid prison. Number 1, as I said, the number 1 firepower you should have is of the mind. Number 2, you needn't be a savage to carry a gun. No, anyone can carry a gun. Using the gun thoughtlessly might make you a savage, but certainly you should have the ability to protect yourself. Hopefully it never comes to the bullet. Most often, I think if you're organizing and you're being thoughtful about your actions and you're surrounding yourself with good people, it'll never come to the bullet. I've owned many firearms in my time, and I sold all of them, and I had some beautiful pieces. I sold all of them. Now I'm probably going to pick up some more pieces, because now, as I have more notoriety, you have a lot of weirdos who have stepped out of the shadows. And me, when I go out, I would not like to go out from the hands of one of my enemies. I would rather go out in a greater way. And so I will probably make a few acquisitions in case one of these goofballs or a couple of them want to step out of the shadows, because rarely will they walk up to me and ask for a fair fight because they know my hands are nice. So I'll have to have something else prepared for them. Alan sends through the super chat. Truly appreciate it. Confidence creator comes through. Why won't it pop up? That's weird. Okay, there we go. Thoughts on climate change? Do you believe in it? Is the climate changing? For sure. Has the climate always been changing? For sure. There have been ice ages in the past, which is to indicate that the climate's always been changing. Changing is the nature of the world, is the nature of life. The real question is, are human activities driving climate change? Yeah, probably, right? Every action has an equal reaction, right? Laws of physics. So yes, certainly the activities of humankind are going to lead to something. Is it something that we can stop? I doubt it. Is it something that wouldn't have occurred without our activities? I don't know. Is it something I would focus my energies and thoughts on? No, certainly not. I think there are a great number of human beings attempting to play God. Bill Gates is one such person whom I'm extremely suspicious of. Here is the address of that backup channel. I need to make a unique URL for it, so please forgive me for not doing that. But when you go to that channel, it'll have like actually, I think it has this logo, the cherub logo on it, and it says the Saint. That is the one you should add. Don Picasso writes, do you think that it is possible for China to colonize the USA? And what do you think would be the outcome of such a possibility? Anything is possible. I think in many ways, China has colonized the United States government, though they don't know it yet. China owns a great deal of United States debt, as well as United States real estate and assets. And that is a form of colonization, as colonization, in essence, is to extract value from another country. So that's already in the works. The real question for you as an individual and you as a saint is, how are you providing for yourself and your own future? And I always say, you should have friends everywhere. And, I do have friends in China, and I do have friends in Latin America, and friends in Africa, and friends in the United States. And that's also why I advise my enemies, like, you can joke if you want to and think I can't reach you, I can. But I advise you to always get on the strong side of a power dynamic. And that's something I write about in the black box. So, be thoughtful about your moves. Showing love to yourself is keeping yourself in a strong position. Brandon writes, I love Muslims, but I am a Christian. That's a beautiful thing. And I think all serious religious people have love for everyone, though they might not necessarily agree with a person's ways. Zaid Hoda writes, Jazakallah khair, Saint. Jazakallah khairan, Saint. These are the words I was looking for earlier when I was tongue-tied. This is what happens. I've been speaking Spanish for the last couple weeks. Do forgive me. Khalid verifies what I said earlier. It is true you cannot force anyone to join Islam. It is haram, meaning forbidden, which is true. Dave, and I'm not saying people don't do it. I'm saying the Quran recommends against it. You see, the reason that I promote the ism and I don't promote Islam, I don't promote Christianity, I don't promote Judaism or any of these other religions is because the conduct of the believers is disgusting. Islam, beautiful. Christianity, beautiful. The Torah, beautiful. But the conduct of the Jews, Muslims, and Christians is disgusting most of the time, right? So what I promote is the ism, you see, because when you follow the ism and you say you are a saint, we are going to make it so that this is something that has to be conferred upon you, and we get to check on it and make sure that you are abiding by the dictates of being a saint, you dig? Whereas Muhammad, peace be upon him, is not around to say, no, that is not a Muslim activity you're engaging in. Jesus is not around to say, that was not very Christian of you. But we are around to say, hey, we don't get down like that. We don't conduct ourselves in that way. Straighten up. Roxana writes, wow, Marquette, you're a very intelligent guy, and I really like your content. Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot when the ladies come through. Shout out to the lady saints. You dig? It's lit tonight. If I can get the internet to work downstairs, I kind of want to do an additional live on a whole different topic. We got some gorgeous women outside. Now I want to take some answers, some questions on the romance side of things on a totally different live session. Okay, let me catch up with these super chats. It's just such an honor to have a community like this. I hope you all realize what we're building. This is monumental. One of the saints from China writes, Assalamu alaikum, ya Ummah in saints. Cadet 85 writes, Tariq Nasheed does great work. He reminds me of you. He calls out racism. I don't do that a lot. I don't do that a lot. A lot of people have done that for me. I don't want to, beat the dead horse. He's banned from the UK, just like Minister Louis Farrakhan. Wow. The UK is, I love my bruvs in the UK, which we have a ton of support in the UK. May the government never ban me, so let me not say anything about them. But that's very sus, shall I say. The UK, I also believe, banned Mufti Mink and or Dr. Nayak, I believe. But yeah, they will ban somebody in a quickie. It's crazy. Knowledge Seeker writes, I grew up with many sisters and a clingy single mother. Oof. It had very negative effects on my character as a man. I'm 27 now, and she still clings to me, hindering my growth. I don't want to hurt her. Let me just remind you of that 3-sentence Quran, that 3-sentence Bible, that 3-sentence Torah. Number 1, be yourself. Be who you are. Do not let anyone take you outside of yourself. And when I say that, that means be the greatest part of who you are. Number 2, be good to yourself. Do not let anyone or anything stop you from being good to yourself. You must nourish yourself. So let that guide you in your dealings with family. And also be good to good people. But remember the order. The order is important. Be yourself first. Be good to yourself first. And then be good to good people. Remember the order. Joshua, good to see you, Saint. He writes, thank you for spreading your knowledge. I find myself adapting some of your beliefs into my personal life every day. Thank you. Peace to the saints. Peace to the saints. Cadet 85 writes, what are your thoughts on the Nation of Islam? I like the work they do. I'm very familiar with the Nation of Islam. And not only that, I've been to many of the mosques. I've been to even Mosque Mariam in Chicago. I've seen the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speak in person. And I'm very familiar with some of the stars of the Nation of Islam, whether it's Dr. Khalid Muhammad or some of the folks who founded the organization, like the most important, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, who wrote the book Message to the Black Man, which is a great work for anyone. He was a real thinker and organizer and planner. And obviously, I've read the autobiography of Malcolm X and his experience with expanding that organization as its national spokesman. I think the Nation of Islam in times past has been a great organization. Today, it is very much so lost, and it's because Minister Farrakhan has not been a good capitalist. The reason I say that, now they're in bed with the Church of Scientology because they need money and they need a place to hold their meetings because they don't have enough real estate. I've been tempted to do a video on the Nation of Islam, but I know those brothers are very serious. I don't want to offend anyone and get bodied because I go through a lot of hoods in the Nation of Islam. I'm not trying to get Malcolm X'd out. You dig? But I do have some opinions on them. And I've been through the mosque in LA. I've been through the mosque in Oakland. I've been through the mosque in Baltimore. And I've been through the headquarters in Chicago. So I'm very familiar. Thank you for the question, Cadet. And thank you again for sharing the love via Super Chat. Okay. I believe that I have almost I think I've gotten to all the Super Chats. Let me make sure I haven't missed any Cash Apps. And we'll go ahead and wrap up. Truly appreciate the support, of course. Okay. We got all the Super Chats addressed. By the way, take out some time right now to click like on this video because I can promise you this joint is being flagged as we speak. So go ahead and click the like button. Maybe that can redeem us. So I've caught up on all of the Cash Apps. And let me just hit these last couple Super Chats. Timo King Lang writes, what do you think are the differences and similarities between Christianity and Islam? People get an entire PhD and write a dissertation on this very question. So let me in advance say that I will not do a justice to this very far-reaching question. But in short, the difference with Christianity and Islam, number one, is that Islam and Christianity are, one is a polytheistic religion in some ways, and the other one is a monotheistic religion. polytheistic, meaning that it has more than one God. In actual fact, if you've read the Bible, you have come to understand this Trinity concept of God the Father, Jesus the Son, and then the Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost. And these three things kind of are three in one, so they can be divided and they're also one at the same time. And this Trinity concept was actually created after Christianity was created. It's an innovation in some ways. So I'd say that's one of the big issues, whereas Islam is very clear that, there is no son of God. Muhammad is not a son of God. He's a regular human being of flesh, just like me. Jesus was a regular human being of flesh, just like me. They can't do miracles. They can't do magic. There's only one God, which is Allah. And so that's where they're different. There are also some other minor differences that are largely irrelevant to me, thinking big picture. The similarities you find between Islam and Christianity are numerous. Number one, Jesus is a central figure in Christianity. He's a central figure in Islam. In Christianity, he's the Son of God. In Islam, he is a messenger of God, meaning one who carries God's word and shares it with a people. He is the most quoted prophet in the Quran, and obviously Jesus is well quoted in the Bible as well. Other prophets like Moses and these other folks are also, in both texts. You also find the stories in both texts are there. So whereas you have Adam and Eve in the Bible, you'll have like Hawa and they have a different name, but it's like a creation story in the Quran. You have the concept of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible, where essentially there was a city that was engaging in foul activities, namely homosexuality, and God gave a death sentence to Lot, to the wife of Lot. And in the Quran, it's kind of the same thing. The Lot is a prophet, called Lut alayhi, and his wife was killed for looking upon this filthy city where dirty acts were occurring. So a lot of the stories are the same in both texts. And similarly, in the Quran and in the Bible, it speaks negatively against murder. It speaks negatively against sex before marriage. It speaks negatively against homosexuality. It speaks positively for obeying your parents. It speaks as family is a central thing. And in the Quran, most people don't know, it says that all peoples who follow the book will have heaven, follow their book, which is, it says in the Quran, it says Jews who follow the Torah will have heaven. Christians who follow the Bible will have heaven. And Muslims who follow the Quran will have heaven. So that's a unique thing that people don't know about the Quran. So they're very similar works. The idea of the Quran is that the Bible is the word of God, but it has been perverted by mankind. It's been edited, and the evidence is that you have all of these different versions of the Bible, the King James Version, the Recovery Version, the New International Version, so on and so forth. And then you have all these sects of Christianity, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, New Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists, and all these different things. So the Muslims believe that the Quran is pure and uncorrupted. And of course, there are fewer varieties of Islam. You might have the Shia, the Sunni are the two major divisions. So, that's my short answer. And again, please forgive my shortcomings as I'm not a religious scholar. Okay, let me make sure we've hit all of these super chats, and then we will go ahead and wind down. We hit that one. Trust Hoover D, trust that. David Dixon, truly appreciate the tuition. Cadet 85 writes, Tariq has paid for funerals for the likes of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Shout out. And blacks who were unjustly killed. He has bailed out some blacks who were unjustly arrested. That's good. That's very good. I commend him for that. Knowledge Seeker, since through the CAD, he writes, I grew up with many sisters. Oh, yeah, we addressed this one. They're coming out of order. Cadet 85 writes, what are your thoughts? Okay, we got that one. Shame on me. It's just. Matthew Rodriguez writes, this is a long live video, over 2.5 hours so far. Just a little more tuition. Hey, I appreciate you appreciating my work. Thank you. I'm actually on the last night of my vacation, so we are putting in some work right now. Blake Carter sent through the tuition. Truly appreciate it. Answered Timo's questions. James Kelly sends through the Euro, writes, a dictator is just a professional serial killer. Well, that would almost make sense. Would you consider Barack Obama a dictator? Because certainly he has a lot of bodies on his hands. Would you consider Biden a dictator? Because he just added a few bodies to America's hands just yesterday. Perhaps just being in government, a leader of a government, is likely to make you a serial killer. Maybe that's the new designation. Kevin Paradise writes, I usually find myself dumbing down to relate to people I'm around. It's nice to see similar minds. My goal is to hit the conference and mingle with y'all. Oh, Kevin, bruh, you will love your time at the conference because you will be around good brothers. And not to be a weirdo, but good looking, well dressed, intelligent brothers, very attractive men. So it'll be an honor to be with them and be among them. It is like a home. You know, the Assassin is like a home for intelligent, creative persons. So you will be thankful. Passport Inc. sends through the tuition. Truly appreciate that. Blake Harder writes, what books do you recommend to go over what the constraints America puts on its citizens? This live session is much needed. Truth cannot be withheld. You know what? I wouldn't spend too much time reviewing the restraints that America has put on the citizens. Rather, I would start investing time in, getting into the educational space, educational government, school boards, educational policy, and start fixing the minds of the youth, start influencing public schools. And also I would focus on building your own income because in America to have impact, you need money. In fact, everywhere to have impact, you need money. So I would start focusing on that. Figuring out what kind of bondage you're under, if you don't know right now, won't be anything that makes you any happier or terribly useful. Tom A writes, thank you for the candor knowledge. The mind needs to be sharp, and this has been a whetstone. I appreciate your time. Peace to the saints. Peace to the saints. Thank you, Tom. Means a lot. Action Jackson comes through with the super chat. Hit these last ones. And Cadet been coming in strong. Cadet then came in with about 5 super chats. By the way, if you have not been like Cadet sitting through 5 super chats, the least you can do is click the like button, as indeed it is a freebie. It's an easy way to do something good for a good person. Go ahead and click that super chat if you have not. And I think that we have addressed all of the cash apps. I don't think we've missed any of those. Obviously, I want to show love to those who show love to me. And I believe we have as well hit super chats. Caleb writes, thoughts on Enoch and why it's not in the Bible. I don't have much familiarity with Enoch. And I could never tell you why anything's not in the Bible, for I did not write the Bible. I appreciate the super chat. And Caleb also writes, tuition, peace to the saints. Thank you, Saint, for sharing your question. But if you, of course, want to send me a URL to check it out on Patreon, I'd be happy to review it. Saints, I truly appreciate the time you have spent here with me on this live stream. Shout out to those who have lasted to the end so that we can end this the way we always end this, with the creed of the assassin. Repeat after me, knowing that this is true of you wherever you are. The creed of the assassin. I am going to be who I truly am because I am remarkable. And I'm going to I'm blank.
It's been too long.
I'm just massively dehydrated. Pause 1 second, please. If you really watch me, that's the first time I've ever messed up the creed of the assassin. Do forgive me, saints. Let us start this over. We must do this correctly. The creed of the assassin. Repeat after me with full conviction, even more convicted than the time before, knowing that this is true of you. The Creed of the Assassin. I am going to be who I truly am because I am remarkable, and I'm going to strive every moment to show the greatest part of who I am. Peace to the saints.